All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I'm joined by my good friend and partner in crime at this point, Baselit Analyzer. How you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty well, man. I'm looking forward to this one. This one's a classic movie, classic 90s, classic Pacino. I'm going to try to not to do too many Pacino impressions.
Feel free. Feel free. And we need to give a major shout out to our brother, Aaron. Aaron Head, thank you so much, brother, for sponsoring today's stream. We greatly appreciate it. And thanks for becoming a website member. It's been great to get to know you and even chat privately in our last fitness meeting. So God bless you, brother. God bless the family. And again, thank you so much for sponsoring today's stream. I think, as BLA said, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's so much to get into. And one of the things that Aaron was wanting us to do is kind of talk about how it relates to different cultural shifts and looking how it relates to culture, the late 90s, how it relates to the 21st century, and so much. So there's so much for us to get into. We're going to be talking about Paradise Lost, John Milton, Dante's Inferno, and so much more. So this is going to be a fun one. Also got to say, the last one we did got a little too spicy for the inner tubes. We got taken down twice while we were live. And so we learned our lesson. You cannot play absolutely not a single peep of the audio of these movies. And you can't even, not even muted, you cannot play a section of the video. So we will click through today. That seems to be doable, but we made the mistake of opening the last one on conspiracy theory, but the Mel Gibson scene, the taxi cab, and that shot us in the foot real quick as soon as we
that one got. I mean, also because the rapid fire momentum of bass Mel in the opening of that last one was like sure to get popped. So, but this one's also Warner Brothers. So yeah, we same as last time. So we got
so we're going to be very careful. Make sure that we do not upset the powers that be in the algorithm. But we're going to do what we normally do. And that is begin with the ending, and then we'll get into the film. So before we even discuss particular scenes or whatnot, what's the general take? What's the general overview? I got a handful of takeaways and a handful of themes that I want to get into, but I want to give it to you first. How do you want to open up with this?
Yeah, this is a great movie. This is like classic movie. I mean, if you're into Pacino, especially, this is one of the movies. This is the movie where you can tell that the producers and the writer were like, look, we need you in this movie. There's nobody else. Just do whatever you want. Right. And he just gets kind of let loose. And it's good because it kind of the genres it crosses genres. So it's a hero's journey. It's really an epic in a way. I mean, it's not long enough to be like an epic film, but it's an epic in terms of the story because of the hero's journey in it. Right. And it's also a horror movie. It's a thriller. It's a legal movie. One of the great legal movies. So there's a lot in this, and it's much. It has a clever quality to it that I think may escape you if you see it like only one time. Going back and rewatching it, there was a lot in this that I was really surprised by. So especially with themes dealing with, as you just mentioned, I'm sure we're going to talk about, we have to, because the character's name is John Milton. So we're going to talk about Paradise Lost. There are elements, of course, of Dante's Inferno and of Dr. Faustus or the Faust. And you've done a stream on Faust. Yep. I did one of my early streams on Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. You did the Goethe version. Yeah. And I've done Dante's Inferno. I did the whole Dante's Inferno early on in my channel, and then Milton's Paradise Lost, especially book one, was part of the early life of this stream. So it'll be great to go back to it.
Yeah. So one of the first takeaways, again, coming away with conclusions before we even get into the movie. One of the ones that I really liked is that the 20th century was Satan's. Mm-hmm. And looking at some of the dialogue of Al Pacino's character as Satan, really insightful, and things that are actually pretty consistent with an Orthodox worldview and Orthodox theology. So the idea that Satan's sort of just selling the future. He talks about buying and selling when there is no future, and that it's really sort of this, the immediate moment of one's choosing their fate through their free will. I love this play at this emphasis on free will, which is going to take us back to Paradise Lost and Milton trying to work out this whole understanding of a clear conscience from his Puritan worldview. But one of my favorite takeaways was the Satan character of Al Pacino, but looking at it symbolically. For example, one of the first things that he gets Marianne, Kevin, who is Keanu Reeves' wife, to do is to cut her hair. And so one of the women make the the remark that you either work, play, or breed. These are the three options for one of the women that decide to essentially go along with one of these men that are working at this law firm. And so maybe we should explain a little bit about the overall intention of the film, so people who hadn't know exactly what we're talking about.
Kevin, can anyone deny that the 20th century was entirely mine? Yeah. which is by the way, like a Jack the Ripper proto quote. You know, I did a Jack the Ripper stream, and there's the quote often attributed to Jack the Ripper in 1888. One day people will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century. And now we see this kind of in hindsight as that the amount of death and destruction and depravity in the 20th century is satanic. And it's interesting because in his final monologue, which we're going to, take apart at the end, he really does make a number of predictive claims about the way that the 21st century will open up. Especially he talks about fiber optic cables connecting everyone. And it's really amazing because the point of it is that everyone will be their own God, he says. And so, yeah, it's pretty clever.
Right. So, and I wanted to be on that point in regards to selling the future, because that comes from the whole scenario. So first, before I even lay out some of my conclusions, this for those who, jumping in, I haven't seen this movie. Well, okay. The Devil's Advocate is really it's following the life of Keanu Reeves. His name's Kevin. He's a lawyer from Gainesville, Florida. And it kind of opens up that you see he's an incredibly charismatic and successful defense lawyer defending what is made apparent there in the opening scenes of a pedophile who's accused of sexually touching these girls that he was a teacher at the school of. And Keanu Reeves, even though he in his heart of heart knows that he's guilty, basically flipping the script when the girl's on the stand and humiliating her and convincing the jury trial that in fact the pedophile is innocent. And so he escapes, and then they celebrate. A guy eventually comes and offers him a job. He goes to New York, and he's working then for this massive, hugely successful law firm, which again in the movie is run by Satan, and that he's then continually to work for Satan. So he's constantly defending these people that are actually guilty of the crimes they're being accused of, but his job is to lie. That's why he's Satan's or the devil's advocate. And this goes on to the point where this is torturing his wife. She's becoming more and more distressed, dealing with really the demonic reality that they're in. And then eventually it sort of leads to the point where Keanu Reeves gets another guy off who kills his family in a fit of rage because his wife found out that he was cheating. And then later, once he defends him against this, and his wife is basically going totally mad at this point, he realizes that the guy that he got off who murdered his family was in fact a pedophile as well. And so it sort of brings him back full circle, and he kind of begins to connecting the dots, which then leads to his wife dying and him then ending the movie where he's confronting Satan and realizing that it's his father. Again, we're going to unpack exactly how this all falls into place, but basically prevents Satan from building his empire by killing himself, so Satan can't use his seed to fornicate with his half sister. So we see incest being played out, but he chooses not to do that. And when he does, killing himself, he wakes up at that point at the beginning of the film where he's defending the pedophile who sexually molested these girls in school, and he makes the right choice by saying he can no longer defend this client. And so the movie then comes back full circle. It sort of ends where it begins, and the realization that this is the cascading effect of one who then chooses to be the advocate, the devil's advocate by lying. Anything you want to add to that as that sort of general synopsis overview?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the devil is in the details, right? In this one. Yeah. So there are a number of sort of film tropes that they play on, but they kind of improve. I mean, there are two things in the film two big criticisms of the film that I have in terms of the logic of it. I mean, but we can kind of get into that. I mean, one is what you just mentioned, the fact that it's a dream, we end in a dream. which is like
Right.
the cheapest way to end any work of literature or a film. Oh, it was all a dream. Now, it kind of works in this one because of the mirror aspect of it, like because there are mirrors within mirrors of this.
Right.
And the other is that I feel like they kind of screwed up by making Keanu Reeves is, spoiler alert, Keanu Reeves is the son of Satan in this. But Satan wants a grandson who will be, as he says, the Antichrist, and Al Pacino says, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird, but they kind of make it work because of who his mother is and who's Satan had to he had to mate with to have John Kevin Lomax, who is Keanu Reeves. So those are my two big criticisms, which we'll get into later. But they do make it work in this, and the free will aspect is pretty consistent throughout the film. So especially tied in with like legal ethics, because that's part of the problem in this. In how he runs the trial at the beginning, because he knows the guy's a creep, and he sees evidence of it. So the question is, like, how do you handle that if you're a lawyer? So we'll get into that when we go through the movie.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that if this movie was written or made in 2023, ironically, again, we really do not see anything extremely LGBTQ in this movie. Only really some girls making out with each other, which are sort of the girlfriends of Satan, as a sort of luring device to Keanu Reeves, Kevin. But, it uses rape, pedophilia, incest, all these things are hinted at.
Yes.
But you really don't see and it shows you the sentiments. That's just the difference in culture from 1997 America to America in 2023, that basically that whole dimension is entirely absent of a movie about Satan and about him sort of inverting the world.
I think so. But on the other hand, this is about an echelon, a class that is above that. So in terms of like who these guys represent and what they're standing for, they're not like, they kind of verge on managerial class, right? Because he's a lawyer and he's working. But I mean, Satan is at the literal top of the pyramid, like in the building where he works. He's in the penthouse. So it's like any of that stuff with the people in this movie, it seems like they would, because that's the way it is, like in real life. Like it's like, you look at the recent the Budweiser thing, right? And it's like, yes, the marketing does that because it's furthering their worldview, but the people at the top probably have nothing. Who knows? I doubt they have anything to do with, it's like, no, that's for them. We're at the country club and at our private estates, and we're going to get in the helicopter, and we have nothing to do with all that stuff, but that's what we're pushing. Sure. So in a way it makes sense, because
I could see it from that point, but I would imagine if this movie was made in 2023, that multiple characters, there'd be gay scenes, there'd be different things to emphasize the sort of homosexual attraction, which it really is sort of absent in this movie. But getting back to the point, now that I've sort of laid out an overview of the movie, I want to get back to the point you talked about with the fiber optic and everything, because this gets to a scene in which Satan towards the end talks about, one, that he is the 20th century was all of his, but then how he's selling the future, and that Satan is selling the future. He's getting people to buy and sell the future when there is no future. And he's doing it through people basically selling their souls, working for him. But he talks about what he does is he builds massive egos the size of cathedrals. So again, you're living in your own temple of worship. We're going to fiber optically connect everyone to the most immediate impulses.
That's right.
Again, sounds like the 21st century. This is 1997. What was it? You Got Mail by Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. Wasn't that like 1994? So this is an early period in the internet.
Yes, early. Yes.
Yeah. So 97, people were not thinking at all that, a fiber optically interconnected world to your most immediate impulses was a way in which Satan was going to manipulate the 21st century, the coming of the millennium, which he specifically says in this scene. He talks about how he's going to get...
He mentioned cybernetics, but he calls it kybernetics. And I'm sure they were like, they were like, the script supervisor was like, sir, he made a mistake. And they were like, just let him roll, just keep going. But he like Al Pacino, don't know what that is. But yeah, they were, I mean, because cybernetics and fiber, I mean, I remember in the 90s, everything was about fiber optic cables and living in a fiber optic world. So that's why it kind of does it. But the internet is like, the internet plays like no role in the movie.
Right.
So it is definitely prior to that.
Cell phones were new at this point. So
Yes.
so like you're paging people and hitting them on their cell phone it's a symbol in this movie of their high status, that managerial echelon in society that they occupy, as they have access to these things. They're constantly connected.
I was the only one of my friends with a cell phone, and it was supposed to be for emergencies. Forgive me, mom and dad. And I remember my dad coming in and saying, "We got the phone bill for the cell phone. It was $800." So, and I'd made like 8 calls on it. So I had like a 1996 Atlanta 96 special edition Motorola. He even says in the movie, like, go out and find Eddie Barzoon. He may be running, but you can page him. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing before you keep going, you brought up in the last stream we did, something that they talked about in this movie specifically, which was, he said, are we negotiating? He says, always. And he says, what do I get? And he says, how about instant bliss? Right. Bliss on tap whenever you want it. You mentioned that in the last stream. So that's the first thing that he comes up with in this.
Yeah. And that's where it was so interesting at the end, how he talks about how he's going to do this in the next millennium, trying to offer Keanu Reeves to take over the law firm, to basically build this empire of control into the 21st century, was building massive egos, fiber optically connecting everyone to the most immediate impulses, getting people to live in their most wild fantasies, having everybody become their own emperor or god, and then finally everybody will be alone and there'll be nobody to help them. And while this is all playing out, you're seeing Eddie Barzoon running, and this is actually happening to him in real time as Pacino, Lucifer, Satan, is talking about this moving through. And I thought, wow, that is so insightful. The inversion of the femininity too. So Pacino is getting Marianne, Keanu Reeves' wife, to cut her hair, and you see this hair is always historically been a sign of fertility, both for a man's beard, his sexual virility, but then a woman's sexual fertility with like how long and beautiful her hair is. It's a sign of genetics. It's a sign of health. And so Satan getting her, when what she's most interested in the movie at the time too is having a baby. So again, the demonic women around her tell her you can either work, play, or breed. She's glad she doesn't want to work, but she feels kind of lost not working. All these other girls, they just play all day while their husbands work, but they all have no children. And she wants to have children, so she wants to take the option of breeding. But that is also ends up not happening, at least within the trajectory of the dream. But cutting the hair, I thought that was so symbolic, because there was a stream that I want to do next week on erasing women. And that is, we talk about, the attack on masculinity, the attack on men, which is true. But when we look at women in our society, traditionally feminine women, their role isn't to like fight for their own identity in society. And so, Rachel talks about this a lot, but traditional femininity, stay at home mothers, having babies, men competing in women's sports, like men are totally outshining women as quote unquote women, which is erasing women. And it's like this really ironic thing that the transgender movement, the people who are most affected by it are actually like the submissive, traditional feminine women, because they get totally obfuscated by this cultural movement.
The first thing that drives her mad, like when she really breaks out, is after the Skittles scene in the dressing room. Do you remember that scene where they're trying on the dresses and the girl,
yes.
The girl removes her clothing and, and says, and tries to get her to touch her. And she's like, no. And she says, they're day drinking. They're, not moms, but they're,
like a high-end fashion boutique where they're like trying on dresses and stuff.
Yes. They're at Balenciaga, Gucci, Louis, Fendi, Prada.
Yeah, it was Balenciaga for sure.
And she's like, that scene made me angry, because that's the thing for me. Like she says, she's drinking wine and she says, no, no, no. And she says, yes, yes, yes. And she pours it anyway. And I hate when grown-ups do that. It's like, she could say that she's a grown woman. She knows whether she wants to continue drinking, that like respect what she wants to do. She doesn't have to drink to, and then they're trying to get her drunk and then they remove their clothes. That's the first time she sees really sees the demonic.
Right. Sees them as they really are.
Yes. That's a good point, because a lot of the movie is about seeing things as they really are. And she seems to be the only one in the movie who, I mean, besides Milton, besides Satan, who sees things as they really are.
Right.
Because you notice that with the mirror, the fact that spoiler alert again, what happens to her within the dream timeline, which is that she loses her mind, she's fractured, she dissociates, she goes, like, they assume she's schizophrenic. She breaks a mirror and she takes a mirror shard and she stabs herself in the neck, which is interesting because she stabs herself exactly where Al Pacino had told her the neck represents the battleground between the body and the mind. And that's where she stabs herself. And it's with a broken mirror shard because she's a broken psyche, but she's the only one who can see herself. I mean, the movie starts off.
And that's why she doesn't want to look at herself. So towards the end of the movie, she doesn't want to look in the mirror because she's disgraced, because she believes she was raped by Satan and that she basically let him do it, wanted him to do it, but then wanted him to stop. And then he raped her, but she felt complicit in it. And so she was so ashamed of herself that she wouldn't want to look at herself, where the vanity of all the other characters in the movie who are complicit in all the sins and all the degeneracy and the evils that are going on, they are quite fine with looking at themselves and they all look great and fabulous and youthful and pretty.
Yeah. There are scenes of nudity in the movie. And it's interesting that the only scene that they work in different ways. The other nude scenes are supposed to be to appeal to his vanity and to his lust, right? Whereas the scene where she's nude is literally, she walks into a church and reveals herself bare. She's like naked. She's totally bare. And she's like, this is what is going on. And he still can't see it. Right. So it's also interesting that, I don't know if she has a job at the beginning of the movie, but when they first get to the apartment in New York, she says, there are 2 extra bedrooms in here. You know what that means? So she's thinking about, she wants to have children. And then she gets that taken away from her by Satan. She sees the image with the baby, which is horrible in the movie. And then she consistently wants to go back to Gainesville. She wants to go back down south. She wants to be in nature. You notice how the Gainesville scenes, like outside, are all green. Yep. It's Florida. Yep. It's, she's in nature. She says in New York, like, there's nobody there. It's this empty house, and it's just these like phantom figures around her, and there's nothing wholesome there, and she doesn't feel right. She wants to go back.
Right. I thought what's interesting too is that Revelation 18 played an important role in this movie, which also played an important role in our analysis of Fallen. Mm-hmm. So the chapter that was specifically discussed in that movie, again by the characters, was Revelation 18:2, but Revelation 18 and quotes from it were replete through the film today, or the one that we're discussing today. But
Revelation
I also wanted to get another takeaway that I thought was so interesting, and the fact that Satan is ruling a law firm that deals with the defending people who are guilty and getting them off of the potential sentence that they would be sentenced to for their crime. And so in a way, it's like the ultimate prevention of justice, but it's also the inversion of what Christ's role was in creation. And I was trying to think about the theological elements of all this stuff. Like, why would Satan want to be a defense lawyer? Well, Christ dying for the sins of the world is like him stepping in place of true justice, of what justice should be, but then him being the ultimate role of justice by putting that and taking that on his burden. But what this movie is doing is constantly getting people who are embedded in the most degenerate sins and crimes to be freed from it, which is really then an enslavement to Satan. So the freedom is temporary, if you will, which gets back to him, selling the future, because the future is all based on your free will choice. As he said, he just sets the table and sees what choice that you make. And that's what's so interesting about the film, is the entire film is constantly a choice. Yeah. Everything that happens is a choice, and the people choose the wrong choice, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And again, becoming the devil's advocate.
Even the fact that they defend the murderer. I mean, they're a huge New York law firm, and they're not a defense firm. He even says that. He says, why do you want me to take on this defense case? And he says, well, we have clients who deal with, they're human beings and they deal with all sorts of this stuff, murder, all this stuff. But remember what he finds out from the managing director when he sees him burning the files and the investigations on the way. What they're really into is global operations. That's why they're at the top. They're into money laundering, drug money from South America, chemical warfare, biological warfare, arms trading. So it's one of these multinational conglomerates that's representing, the top echelon.
Right. And the most evils in the world, the things that are creating the most chaos in our societies and planet.
Right. So on the one hand, as far as I'm no lawyer, but I know Southern lawyers very well. We should say, I mean, everyone in my family's a lawyer. On the one hand, the legal ethics are that everybody is supposed to be everyone's supposed to be represented fairly in terms of equal justice, because what we have in this country is like, even if the lawyer thinks, so for instance, even if the lawyer thinks that the client may have committed the crime, they still haven't, he may only think that, and they still deserve to be represented in court, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if you know that the client has committed the crime, then see, this is where I'm confused about what he does in the film, because he clearly oversteps the bounds and he's lying. So what the lawyer can't do is lie or like put someone on the stand that will further the lie that he's aware of. It can only be in pursuit of how the defendant is going to plead, or how the case is going to be tried. So for instance, when he finds out that the guy, he would, it would be a mistrial if he stood up in trial and said, I can't defend this guy anymore. He would have to go to the judge and ask him to do it. But at the end of the movie, all that becomes moot at the end of the movie, because he goes ahead and does it anyway. And then at the end of the movie, we see that he's willing to he's clearly going to be disbarred. Right. But that doesn't matter to him because of, because of the story that's just happened. Right. On the other hand, the story continues because now it deals with media and reporting, right, rather than law, which is an interesting angle. Like he used the law, and now on the next timeline, he's going to use media and reportage to appeal to his vanity. So it's just another element within the
Pacino character in the film, when asked about why lawyers, why is Satan the head of this multinational conglomerate of lawyers? Well, it's because we have back doors then into all enterprises. And so as you talked about, whether it be drugs or, arms smuggling or whatever it may be, human trafficking, well, politicians, global economic policies, they have the back door into all these different systems to be in touch with the echelon of society. And those people, if they get engaged in dirty crimes, well, their job is to cover them up, which is the sort of spiritual energetic exchange that is happening in the movie. And that's how he's building his empire, which is, I think, totally true with the world right now. And the way that, just from a theological perspective, that is how it works, is that it's not that, we always talk about conspiracy theories, all this, and we brought this up last time. It's not that everybody's in on it. It's that everybody is contributing to the same ripple effect, the same sort of energetic follow through by participating in things that go against the objective morality of the logos, of logos theology, of Christ, of Christianity. And that whenever you transgress those boundaries, it naturally creates this sort of ripple effect of chaos, which is then the global conspiracy, if you will. But there only needs to be a handful of people into it. Right. As he said, the point is to fiber optically connect everybody to their median impulse, to get everybody to worship themselves as God, to get people to live in a fantasy and not reality. And it's like, well, damn, in 2023, we're pretty darn close to that. Yeah. It seems like, I mean, this movie's 26 years old, and it's like, geez, we got VR porn and people living in their coon pods, and everybody's got to eat the bugs, and we're right in the thralls right now, the Great Reset,
and just, my truth, right? There's no objective truth anymore, that everyone is a god in their own, in their own little bodily temple, and whatever needs they can do to satisfy their own, bliss is all that matters. It's just that each person out for themselves, in terms of how, I'm not saying that we want it to be that way. I'm saying that's how he presents it. And that's kind of the reality that we see in terms of a generalized society right now, for sure.
In regards to that point, and towards the relativity of truth, it's really interesting that the Pacino character also gives sort of adulation to Keanu Reeves because of the ecumenical point that he makes in regards to there's a sort of satanic sacrifice of a goat. And in court, this is one of the first court cases that Keanu Reeves has as his test working for Satan, is that he has to defend this guy. And the way he defends him is that his religion is part of all religions, and that it doesn't matter if he's Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever he was practicing, this is his religious right. And Pacino makes the point that, well, aren't you the one that said this? Aren't you the one that made basically a relativistic moral claim about it, which again is sort of ecumenical. And one of the notes that I took in regards to Keanu Reeves' ability to pick a jury is curating consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what I thought is so interesting about, again, whether it be, we could look at this from a media angle or lawyers or juries, or it's about curating consensus, that truth is really then what the multitude of people believe it to be, not about the objective truth that actually is, despite whatever people believe, which again is this is the theological point of the movie, is that there is an objective truth. But what makes Kevin so great is that he can curate the consensus of the jury by making sure he selects them correctly. That would be most efficacious to the way he presents the defendant.
Yeah, you see that little old lady over there. You think she's an innocent librarian, but no, somebody hurt her in her past, and she just wants punishment. She's out to get somebody. How do you know this? All right.
Yeah. And so I wanted to connect that before we started going into the movie per se. But I wanted to tell everybody to smash that like, guys. We have over 100 people here live with us. Smash that like and give us a thumbs up if you can. Also, major shout out to Aaron for sponsoring today's stream. This stream was actually not planned this week, but it was a sponsored stream. And so BLA was kind enough to join me again today. Literally, our last video on this channel was me and him breaking down conspiracy theory. So it was a quick turnaround, but we have to thank Aaron for that. So God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for helping us out. So I have a few more points about the movie that we can go through once we start going through the scenes. But I thought maybe now, since we've kind of given an overview of the film, we can get into some of the background of Paradise Lost. How does this film relate to Paradise Lost, Dante's Inferno, or even Faust? And then we can start eventually going into the film itself.
Well, it's interesting. I just realized that also, maybe there's a tie-in, this stretch between blind justice and their appeal to blind justice, and the character's name is John Milton, and John Milton actually dictated a lot of the poem. He was blind. So I think that when you first see it, I remember at the time watching it when I was 16, and I was like, oh, they made the character's name John Milton because he's Satan because of Paradise Lost. That seems kind of cheap, but actually it's not. It's pretty clever in this, because the arguments that Milton uses in this are they are straight from Paradise Lost. So what happens in Paradise Lost was published in 1665. And Milton kind of is after Shakespeare, writes an epic poem that is in heroic couplets, it's iambic pentameter, it's unrhymed iambic pentameter. One of the questions of the poem is whether it's actually an epic poem, because one of the things that qualifies an epic poem is to have the hero fall from grace, right? He has to fall from a height down to death or exile. And one of the things that's interesting, I'm trying to eliminate my echo. Sorry, you guys. One of the things that's interesting about Paradise Lost is that Satan is the protagonist of the epic poem. He's the epic hero, and it begins with him falling from a great height. So he falls from heaven. So the way the poem starts off is that Satan is in hell, and All the devils are with him. So Beelzebub starts to speak, and then he forms pandemonium, all the devils. And he realizes where he is. He's in adamantine chains, and he says that there's this thing called, he's railing against God because they've been kicked out of heaven after the war in heaven. And he says basically that there's this thing that I've heard of, and it's a thing called creation, and human beings are going to be born. And so our way of getting back at God is to corrupt human beings. So he has to make his way across the abyss into the garden, become the serpent, and then tempt Eve is his whole purpose. And in doing that, in book 9 of Paradise Lost, that's essentially John Milton in the movie, Al Pacino's argument to Keanu Reeves about free will and why it's an interesting argument because Satan's argument in this is not that God was wrong, it's that he hates him for the choices that he made, and he feels spurned in his vanity and his pride.
Right.
So like it says, I'm just going to read a part of book 1.
Sure.
And it says in book 1, starting at line 44, him the almighty power hurled headlong, flaming from the ethereal sky with hideous ruin and combustion down to bottomless perdition, there to dwell in adamantine chains and penal fire, who durst defy the omnipotent to arms. 9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men, he with horrid crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded, though immortal. But his doom reserved him to more wrath. For now the thought both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him. Round he throws his baleful eyes that witnessed huge affliction and dismay mixed with obdurate pride and steadfast hate. At once, as far as angels can, he views this dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible on all sides round, as one great furnace flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover sights of woe, regions of sorrow, doleful shades, where peace and rest can never dwell. Hope never comes that comes to all, but torture without end still urges, and a fiery deluge, fed with ever-burning sulfur, unconsumed. Such place eternal justice had prepared for those rebellious here, their prison ordained in utter darkness, and their portion set as far removed from God and light of heaven as from the center thrice to the utmost pole. How unlike the place from whence they fell, there the companion and his fall, overwhelmed with floods and whirlwinds of tempestuous fire. So in other words, he finds himself in hell, and that is the way that Satan depicts himself in this. I mean, even the movie even begins with the penal fire, right? It's penal because of justice, because they're involved in the law, and there's fire, and it ends in fire. The other thing that's in the movie that he actually quotes this in the movie, is what's oft quoted from Paradise Lost, the most famous line from Paradise Lost. It says, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell, better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. And then later on, he says that his thesis statement, basically his MO, is to corrupt human beings. The point of Paradise Lost that Milton says in the prologue at the beginning of the film, well, it's an invocation of the muse, a classical invocation, like in Shakespeare's "Oh, for a Muse of Fire," but he's invoking the angel, and he says here that the point of Paradise Lost is to justify the ways of God to man. In other words, you can imagine people are sitting around there thinking, why do bad things happen to human beings, right? And he says, I'm going to write this poem, and it's going to discuss why bad things happen, and it's because of the fall from the, and being expelled from the Garden of Eden, because of giving in to the same type of pride and vanity that Satan has been thrown out of heaven for, is essentially the point in Paradise Lost.
Well, other people, William Blake, Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, William Hazlitt. It's interesting because Paradise Lost is often used to describe a sort of Satan as a sympathetic character. Now, all those individuals are very much interested into esotericism and esoteric things. John Milton was a self-proclaimed Puritan, and he described a lot of his work trying to work out the understanding of like a clean conscience. And so we see that in a way, he's sort of struggling with, religious institutional hierarchy and individual like freedom and liberation. And one of the things that he was very sympathetic towards more religious toleration and things like this during that period. So one of the often literary arguments about Paradise Lost is it a Christian book? Is it a Christian poem, or is it heterodox? Is it filled with, given that Satan is a sort of sympathetic character, and there's been many people who were occultists. Percy Shelley was a mixed African American man who's sort of noted as the developer of like contemporary sex magic that led into Crowley and all this different stuff. Lord Byron, into very weird stuff. I've talked about Mary Shelley and her husband, that they, how they came up with Frankenstein and, swingers and orgies and gay sex.
Yeah.
Lord Byron had male lovers, all types of stuff. So it's interesting. Is it, getting your opinion then, is it a Christian text in your opinion, or do you think these people who were obviously more interested in the occult read it in an occult figure to see Satan as a sort of Promethean hero?
Those guys definitely see it as a Promethean story. I mean, Shelley wasn't mixed. He was a member of a straight up English aristocracy, but Shelley was a pure occultist, and he wrote.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was thinking of somebody else. Right.
He wrote a treatise that got him in trouble when he was at Cambridge on atheism, and he was
right. Yep, I mixed that up. And
well,
go ahead.
Mary Shelley's mother was Mary Wollstonecraft, who was the women's rights writer. And Shelley I just read a biography of Shelley, and Shelley was really, really into the occult in a way that sort of mimics Blake. I mean, Blake was a Gnostic. No doubt. Blake's Proverbs from Hell are like a purely Gnostic text. In fact, Blake's two greatest works are Songs of Innocence and Experience, which are sort of a dialectic, because the poems are mirrored in one another. You've got the lamb, and then tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? It's the two are supposed to be dialectically opposed to one another. And Blake was also a mystic. I mean, people would come to his house, and he would be up in the tree out back, and his wife would say, he's in the back, he's communing with the angels, and he was naked in the back, probably on opium. I've seen William Blake's engravings, which they're amazing, but he did some of the engravings of Paradise Lost, and Gustave Doré did a whole book on Paradise Lost. But
yeah, I spoke wrongly about Percy Shelley. I was confusing him with another gentleman, but I did a whole thing on Frankenstein with Percy Shelley. I'm of the opinion that he actually was the mastermind behind Frankenstein.
He was.
Yeah, well, it's a debate. Yeah. People want to say Mary Shelley, his wife, who was like 19 at the time when they went. So the story is they went to this retreat in Switzerland with Lord Byron, his wife, Percy Shelley, Mary Shelley, somebody else, I forget. And they basically had some contest.
Polidori, Dr. Polidori, who wrote and Trevelyan, and Polidori wrote one of the first vampire stories. And sorry, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, they were on the Swiss, like they were by Lake Como in Switzerland, and they were there for holiday. And she was young. Byron was already uber famous. I did a stream on Byron and on Frankenstein, and they, to pass the time, because they had bad weather, they were inside the house, and they were drinking and smoking opium and doing all kinds of stuff. And they said, hey, let's come up with some ghost stories to entertain us. Polidori wrote something. Byron was writing, and then they came up with the idea of Frankenstein, which is basically like how to reanimate human beings, and it had to have something with like medical practice because of Polidori. And so she came up with Frankenstein. I'm sure that they had she wrote it, but they had a huge hand in editing it. And Frankenstein also, by the way, for the folks in the audience, folks at home, Frankenstein is not really what you think it is. I'll just say that most people think that Frankenstein it's like when I've said this before, but like when you go to a party and they say, "Who are you?" and you say, "Oh, I'm Frankenstein," and then they say, "Oh, you mean you're the monster?" Dr. Frankenstein is someone else. Well, in the book, at least my thesis when reading the book, because most people haven't actually read the book, they just know the story. But when you go back and read the book, it's amazing what you see, which is that Dr. Frankenstein and the monster are never in the same scene together. And Frankenstein, the doctor, is an occultist. He's an alchemist.
Right.
And he dissociates because he's dealing with electricity. He's playing around in the morgue with dead bodies and reassembling parts. And the monster is just him. It's just his dissociated self. So he's chasing himself through the landscape, and then he ends up in the polar ice where Satan ends up in the ninth circle in Dante's Inferno, like confronting his own self, and then dies. Right. So it has a much deeper level than most people. I think that gives a complexity to the work that most people sort of, it's fine to read it on the surface the way most people do, which is that, like, the doctor wants to reanimate life, but really it's about it's like a transhumanist theme, but through dissociation.
And Percy Shelley was noted for his interest in the occult. He was dabbling in homosexual relationships.
Yes.
He was, again, like you said, he got kicked out for his treatise on atheism, which he would do a lot of stuff by aliases, and so he didn't always publish by his, as Percy Shelley. But very controversial figure, very eccentric figure during the Victorian period there. And challenged many social, normals, normal compliances to morality and stuff like that. So there's interesting. I was reading a little bit about the homoerotic elements that are within Frankenstein, which people like Percy Shelley, I guess, had like romantic feelings for his sister, and so there's a lot of like lost letters that he was writing to his sister, which seemed a little bit explicitly sexual in different terms. So the guy definitely had a lot of different things that he was confronting at a very interesting point in history.
Byron was especially again, it's when you look into his letters, it's a lot sadder than most people realize, because he was also a member of a kind of a ruined aristocracy. That's what Byron saw as romanticism, was like the not the castle, but the castle in ruins, because that's where his ancestral home ended up being. And he was clearly involved in eyes wide shut type activities, partly against his will from a young age. And so, because he had benefactors and all this stuff, but you can still go to Shelley, you can go to the Spanish Steps in Rome and go to the Keats Shelley house. Shelley died. He drowned sailing. And then Keats
at a young age, he was like 29, wasn't he?
Shelley was I think he was 36. Byron was 36. Shelley might have been 29. Keats was 26. Keats died of tuberculosis, but they were living together. And
Shelley was 29.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ozymandias is one of the great poems of all time.
Yep. Lord Byron was 36. Yep.
And so the five great romantic poets are Byron, Shelley, Keats, and then Coleridge and Wordsworth, who preceded them, and they lived long lives. Wordsworth ended up being the poet laureate, and Coleridge was a lifelong laudanum addict. And then Blake preceded them all. He's kind of like the godfather of English Romanticism. But the whole movement is about that. Right. And Satan appeals to them because of this sort of Gnostic. Yes, they loved. They saw nature as like God's cathedral in the wild, and they thought that people needed to get out of the cities and do all that. But they also had an affinity for the French Revolution and Enlightenment. Even though Romanticism is a post-Enlightenment kind of reactionary art period, there's a lot of the revolutionary aspects of the Enlightenment that inform their art. And so they, of course, see Milton as a kind of a hero. Even just his language.
Yeah. I wanted to correct myself. For some reason, I was reading earlier, again, regarding Pascal Beverly Randolph. That's who I was talking about, the American occultist. He was sort of a mulatto individual, half black, and he was noted for sex magic. I think, I don't know why, but for some reason, my brain totally had a brain fart there. So,
well, the guy who wrote who wrote The Three Musketeers, sort of contemporaneous with this, a little bit before, but Three Musketeers and Count of Monte Cristo was mixed.
Well, yeah. Regardless of that, that didn't. I was just when I was reading it for some reason.
Talking about Beverly Randolph.
Yeah. But anyways, moving it back towards the movie here. Do you want to speak quickly on Dante's Inferno and Faust and how that connects to this film, so we can get back into doing an overview?
Yeah. So
scene by scene.
So Dante's Inferno is obviously by Dante Alighieri, and it's the first third of his great epic, The Divine Comedy. So you have the Inferno, which is hell, and then Purgatorio, and then Paradiso. And it's called The Divine Comedy because, in terms of a classical definition of a comedy, which is actually what this is, it ends up with a happy ending, because in The Divine Comedy, they end up in heaven. But most people know it as the first third, which is the Inferno. And in the Inferno, we have something mirrored in this movie, which is where we have two characters, an older character and a younger character, and he's taking him through hell. Now they confront Satan, but in the Inferno, it's Virgil who wrote the Aeneid. So in the Aeneid, they go into hell to find Dido, and he takes the poet Virgil. I'm sorry, in the Aeneid. Yeah, so Virgil is in the Inferno, and he is Dante's guide, taking him through the 9 circles. Right. And it's a slow progression into finally into the 9th circle. And that's kind of what this is. I mean, we do see a sort of a circular aspect in terms of the narrative of the Devil's Advocate, because they start off in nature, which is where Dante's Inferno starts off, and then they end up in the city in hell, the city of Dis, which is the city of it's like in the 4th circle, the city of or not. They have to cross the abyss. They eventually have to confront all the various sins. Dante's Inferno is interesting because some of the sins that you think would be further down are not as far down as you would think. So, for instance, like simony is way further down than murder is, and then the worst is treachery or disloyalty. So in the 9th circle, they finally come upon Satan, and he's frozen head down in ice because, like it says in Paradise Lost, he was hurled headlong thrice times from the center to the utmost pole. So he falls from heaven down into the bottom of the very world. And when they climb down his body, because he's huge, they actually, the world inverts and they're climbing up. And then when they see the 3 faces of Satan, which is an inversion of the Trinity, they actually see that the 3 worst sinners are in the 9th circle in hell. It's so cold that it's hot. And so it's Satan, who's disloyal to God, Judas, who betrays Christ, and then Brutus, actually Brutus and Cassius, and they're sort of like in pinwheels of fire in his eyes, moving forever. And so the movie kind of plays into that a little bit, but it really plays more into Marlowe or Kurtz's, but Marlowe's, especially Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, because Kevin Lomax, Keanu Reeves, doesn't really take a deal with the devil per se. Like he doesn't say, you want to sell your soul, and he signs it. But he does take the deal because it's Satan, and because he sells his soul gradually through his giving in to his right. vanity and equivocation and lies and looking away from his wife and all the sins that are going on around him, further into the pit. Dr. Faustus ends different than this, because the end of Dr. Faustus, Beelzebub comes to take him away and says, the clock strikes midnight, it's your time to go. You've sold your soul for all this wisdom, but now it's time to go. And so Dr. Faustus kind of rails against this and is taken by him. But in this one, it's interesting because we have a Beelzebub character, and Beelzebub is Satan's right-hand man in Paradise Lost, and Beelzebub is Jeffrey Jones, who is the Eddie Barzoon. I mean, I'm sure there can't be, like, they had to have done that on purpose, right? They can't say, oh, this is Eddie Beelzebub, so they call him Eddie Barzoon, and he is the managing director of the hell firm. who is done away with, really, in place of Kevin Lomax, who's going to kind of take his job and be at the head of every table. But those are essentially some of the connections there.
Yeah. You want to we can now pull up the movie and we can go scene by scene if you'd like. All right. Let's see here.
So this movie has a good pedigree. It's directed by Taylor Hackford, who's done a bunch of great films, and it was written by Tony Gilroy. Tony Gilroy, people will know because Tony Gilroy like wrote and directed. There's a bunch of Tom Cruise movies, but also the Bourne movies. It's very successful. So it's got a pretty good pedigree in terms of the people who worked on it.
All right. You want to set the stage for the opening scene, how the movie sort of opens here. Again, I'm just going to show people clips. We got to watch out for copyright strikes, so you guys can get a feel for it. Anything in particular? I can go do a sort of chronological summation, but I don't know if you want to say anything specific about this sort of opening scene here.
Well, the very first opening shot, they often do this with the credits and the studio, and the very first opening shot is fire. Right. So we have fire, and so we're setting the scene for the fact that, we're in a kind of a hellscape, and then it contrasts. We get to a courtroom, and we have a courtroom, and that's very reminiscent of what happened, a movie 2 years later with The Ninth Gate and Johnny Depp, and then we go into this courtroom, and of course we have the Atticus Finch Southern lawyer here, and Keanu Reeves is supposed to be, Al Pacino later says this to him. He says, you got this Florida, quarterback alpha look going on here. Hi, ma'am. Did I leave my boots under your bed? Right. And so he's got this tan, he's got his khaki suit on here. He's a Southern lawyer down in Gainesville. It's interesting because they keep calling it Gainesville. He's from Gainesville. And this guy right here is a creeper. And then the girl from Welcome to the Dollhouse is on the stand. And he's going to find out that, he's going to find out that, basically the guy's being accused of creeping on the Welcome to the Dollhouse girl. And then he's going to look down. And first of all, he sees his like snakeskin alligator boots because he's alligators and sort of dragons play a really weird role in the terms of the consistent imagery in the movie. But he's going to look down. He's going to see what this guy's doing. And he's going to say, Yana, would you mind if we take a recess? I always imagine when they say that, by the way, in movies, when they go for a recess, that they cut to all the adults running out of the building into a playground. And they're like on the monkey bars and the jungle gym. But the judge is like, yes. Oh, one other thing about the courtroom that they do in this movie is that people might not be aware that, like, in movies when they have the judge and he says, order in the court, he's hammering the gavel down. Well, that the gavel is not really used in American courtrooms that much. In fact, in Virginia, like, judges don't use gavels at all. And in Florida, I don't think they do either. They just don't hammer the gavel. It's up to the gravitas of their voice and their presence in the courtroom, and they don't even bother with the gavel. But of course, it's a movie, so they do that.
Right. And so in this scene, what we see is the gentleman that I have keyed in here, the guy with the glasses. He's apparently a teacher at a school. And this girl that begins opening, she is sort of recounting the experience she had, clearly very traumatic, of which he tried to grab her, go down her blouse and up her blouse, and touch her in, her sexual parts, her no parts. And Keanu Reeves, why I stopped right here, is because he's looking over and noticing that this guy, just by hearing her describe the event, he starts moving his hand as if he was fondling her right there. And Keanu Reeves sort of comes to this like inner realization that, oh my gosh, this guy clearly did it. He's a pervert.
Yeah, and I feel like at this moment he would be like, bailiff, and the bailiff would take him and open the door with his head, which is not uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think this is just crazy. There's also, it's funny that there's like a whole courtroom full of people like that are there to for the trial, which is very odd. But anyway, yes, he sees that. Gross.
It could be the idea that this was a school that multiple girls are accusing this man of pedophilia, and maybe the town's there to get a load on. Anyways, the whole principle here is that Keanu Reeves comes to in his heart decided that this guy's guilty, calls for a recess, which is what takes them out into the bathroom here, and he decides going back in that he's just going to defend this guy, and basically humiliates this young girl and convinces the jury that she may have just said that he did these things because they played I forget what the name of the game was, but say secret touch or something like that.
Yeah,
where
something
you
really weird.
And this is something that obviously young kids would do, so like boys and girls when they're at parties. But Keanu Reeves uses the instance that she played this game once with people her age, but she played with it once, and then she wrote some note about making fun of the defendant as some type of fat pig or something.
Is it true that you called him a Mr. Fat Pig Head? No, excuse me, Yana. It wasn't a Mr. Fat Pig Head. It was a Mr. Hippopotamus Face. Didn't you call him that? So ridiculous.
It is. And so she then confesses, but again, he gets her to basically fall apart on the stand, and the guy is acquitted of the charges. This leads then to a scene where Keanu Reeves and everybody's celebrating. You see that's Mary Ann, that's his wife. So you're not sure the relationship at that point, but you see she's congratulating. You can tell something's going on. And then the next scene is that they go to the bar to celebrate, of which then Keanu makes out with Mary Ann, his wife, and you can see this whole thing going forward. And this sort of sets the tone of the movie, is that Keanu Reeves is this incredible, undefeated, defending attorney, and he sort of acquired this reputation, of which later at this bar, this night, one of the men are going to offer him a position, which here I'll flip to that as well. And it's going to be a man who works directly. So you see they're drinking, they're getting wild. He's dancing with Mary Ann on the dance floor. And this gentleman begins to offer him a position. And he knows quite a bit about him and his work. And so this guy works for Al Pacino. He's kind of his right-hand man.
Yeah, he's the guy from one of the guys from Law and Order comes down to offer him a job. And while Matthew McConaughey's band is playing in the background, show me your tattoo. Some terrible song. And also I like Mr. Mullet Man, who, is the journalist. Just give me one quote. Right. Who is clearly like his former football teammate at the high school or whatever. But one thing I like Charlize Theron is great in this movie, and she's really cute. This is like early Charlize. This is before she went Skittles. And she's like really cute and wholesome, in the movie. And she's a good wife, and she's like very supportive, and he's alpha dog. He's the Johnny Utah. And this guy comes in, I'm from New York, and he's like, never met anybody from New York. That's real rich. Who put you up to this? Bobby Joe? Right. And the guy's like, no, I'm here in my 3-piece suit or whatever, with his peak lapels. I'm here to offer you a job. Well, the money speaks for itself, right? Shows him the money. Well, in the envelope. Dang, it's lightning storm here. If my power cuts out, ooh, you hear that thunder?
No.
Okay, well, it's thunder and lightning here. So if I cut out, it's thunder and lightning. Oh, so that's
where he gets the money.
Yeah, and then he goes to the Florida church.
Yeah, so then the next scene cuts to Keanu Reeves's mother singing in a Baptist congregation there in Florida, and he's there to get her after the service. So they're singing, hymns to Jesus, and then he's talking to his mother because he's getting ready to tell her that he's getting ready to accept this position that this guy at the bar just offered him to New York. Of which in this scene, his mother, you can tell, is like a wholesome Southern Christian Baptist lady. And she just wants him to be a good, wholesome Christian man with Mary Ann and get married and have babies. Although they are married, but have babies, have a family and every this stuff. But he talks about how he wants to go to New York, and she equates it to Babylon the Great.
Right.
And again, quotes Revelation 18. And so this scene is when this all takes place. She sort of blames Marianne for him wanting to go to New York, but he's basically telling his mom, look, I gotta go, his success is moving forward, and this is the next place for his destination. And she hesitantly gives her blessing to Kevin Keanu Reeves to go to New York.
Yeah, behold, I send you out as sheep amongst the wolves. I think later she quotes Matthew, but yeah, she quotes Babylon, the Fallen there, Revelation. And they were in the church singing Elvis, I, John. They weren't really, but that's what I thought they were. Have you ever heard that song?
Yeah.
I, Johnny, call my number. 3 angels in the east, and there were 3 angels in the west. I know the whole song, but I'm not going to sing it.
Man, I haven't heard that one in
angels
forever.
in the city, all spread wide.
That's hilarious. So next scene is she reluctantly gives him her blessing, and he's talking to, so you can already see he's kind of, look, his girlfriend, or his wife, she's got a cell phone. They're in Gainesville, Florida. She's beautiful, he's successful, and they're getting ready to go to New York. So now they're in New York, and he is helping with this guy select a jury. And this is the point in which you were talking about, where he was talking about the old lady, and that she has vengeance towards somebody who harmed her in the past, and he was basically telling this guy who he would get rid of and reject, and who he would keep in regards to a jury to be sympathetic to the defender. And so this is again the beginning. So we see then how Kevin is willing to negotiate and finagle the jury that he can have a better potential outcome defending these potential criminals that are guilty of some sort or another.
And they do that. I mean, both sides get to pick the jury, so it's they make a trade off. But it's also interesting. He points out the other guy, and he says, "No, look at this other guy. You see those shoes down there? That guy looks like somebody who defends his home or something like that." So
yeah, well, it was a black gentleman who had dreads and all this stuff, and the what appeared to be the Jewish man here with the glasses. He tells him, "Oh no, he's definitely a defender's juror." And he says, "No, did you look? His boots were like spotless, and he clearly makes his own clothing. And I guarantee you that if you went to his home, that he has guns to defend his garden beds, and like his stacks of books." So he's basically insinuating this guy. You may think that he's going to be sympathetic to the defendant, but he seems like he's actually a really well put together black man who is got his life together and basically isn't going to be so sympathetic to crime as you think he is just because he's black.
Dang, there is a full-on hailstorm outside.
Dang, man. Well, hopefully your internet is able to stay on. We'll keep trucking. If anything happens, try to hop back in if your internet goes out or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
so he was brought up there to be a consultant to help with jury selection, and then he finds out that he dang, my windows are going crazy.
I hear that now.
Yeah, but then he finds out that it's little by little, right, that he's brought into the firm, into the fold,
right. And so what I wrote down for here is what I thought was so interesting is the curating of consensus, and that this is one of the ways in which he was able to get the pedophile off in the opening scene, is that you realize his ability to select these jurors. And so, as I mentioned earlier, about how Satan, about the inversion of society, we look at the state of the world right now, and it seems like the collective consensus on things is the way that people then validate if something's right or wrong, as opposed to an objective standard. And so what he's doing with the jury, in a way, I would argue, is what's happening to society. So cancel culture and getting people off media platforms and inability to speak out loud is curating the consensus of our society itself, which totally shapes and alters how we look at crime and justice and good and evil and all this different stuff.
Good point.
Okay, so next one, moving forward, we see, so he's really successful here. And so we move forward, and now there's Satan, Al Pacino, who has yet to meet Kevin. And so they're put up in this hotel room, and man, does it have a great view and all this stuff. And his wife's there, and she's kind of bored, but she likes all the, the glitz and the glamour that they're able to have. And they're talking. She wants to have a baby. And now he's at Milton Chadwick Waters.
Yes. Pretty accurate name for a major law firm.
Yeah,
it really is.
So Milton Chadwick Waters, and he's going around showing him the incredible scenery, the incredible view. Again, what the office has in store, what they do. He's meeting people, and then eventually he's brought to Al Pacino's office.
Yes.
And it's very bland, so it's all concrete, which I thought is really interesting. It has an open fire, as you can see there, with a like half moon shaped bench, and there's just a black desk with one chair to sit in across from him. And so very, very simplistic in the sort of aesthetic design there. And it's just it is in a sort of circle. And as you'll see in the next scene, when they go out, which is actually, again, I'm not afraid of heights, but even like when Pacino sort of stumbles there on the edge of the building, I'm like, oh geez, I can't watch the videos of those TikTok people who are like climbing on the edge of buildings and doing flips and stuff. Can't do it. But you see that this room is basically just a circular concrete room, very simplistic in design, and then it opens out into these infinity pools that are at the top of this this tower building. And then on the other door, it opens into all the office buildings. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so the first time it's telling, because the first time we meet Al Pacino, he's standing behind Keanu Reeves. And he says, I forget what he says when he's standing behind him, but I took that as like, get behind me, Satan. Right. And he's standing behind him and he says, like, I don't know. He says, like, hey there. Well, hoo-ah, or something like that. And then we see him and he's this kind of small guy, but look at him. I mean, he looks like a devilish, a Satan CEO, right? Very well put together. He's smoking. Notice how
yeah, smoking is a theme in there. Yeah.
It is. Yes, all the bad guys are smoking because it's part of the conglomerate and part of what the 90s had to do with all the tobacco industry going on at the time. And sort of taking away people's free will or whatever in the time, but also because they are evil and they're in hell and they are smoking like with sulfur. And this room is like it's like brutalist architecture, and it's all concrete blocks, and also the sculpture on the desk is forget the name of the sculptor. It's a Russian sculptor, but notice how the sculpture is like a Commedia dell'arte figure with a long nose. So he's lying. It's like a Pinocchio figure. So he's lying because
I can't get it. I can't find it in a specific scene.
Right. So because Satan is the father of lies.
There it is. There it is.
There it is. Yeah. So he's lying. We know that he's lying. He's also surrounded. He's also framed by flames. When they go out onto that balcony, this is a real building. They filmed it on location in New York, and that's a real balcony. I forget the name of the building.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's a real building, but they added the pools in post, so the water's not there. But also, I thought it's interesting because it kind of looks, on the one hand, it's like an arrow pointing to that way, which is the city. There's also the abyss. Like
that's what I was gonna say. I took it as an arrow pointing towards the abyss, the drop off, suicide, death. Right.
Well, this is like I think this
city,
is yes, I think this is supposed to mirror the temptation of Christ, right? That Satan comes, he's standing behind Christ, he's offering him all the princes and principalities, all the world. Look at the city. You can have all of this if you do whatever. And the arrow is kind of pointing into the abyss, the drop off. We saw the abyss of the East River. I guess it's the East River. Maybe it's facing west, so it's Harlem River, but it's the bridges crossing the abyss below. And it's also like, it's weird how it's not, it's the dimensions are wrong, right? God makes the crooked line straight. So we have a weird angle, crooked lines here because something's off, because this is Satan. Also, when we see Pacino, there's a weird scene, there's a weird image where he's standing on the edge, and we see Pacino, and he kind of he does this thing like, oh, I'm gonna fake fall off here. Watch this, it's dramatic. But then the camera looks down, and we see his boots, and it's like it's a weird thing. And I guess that's supposed to be because he's got these heels on his boots, and
huge
it's like
heels. Yeah, it looks like Prince out there.
Yeah, is it like, or is this because they're hooves? Right? Are we looking at the devil's hooves?
Interesting. Here? I didn't make that connect. I took it as if he had like the ultimate little man syndrome, right? He's a shorter in stature. He's the Napoleon complex, although it's debated how tall Napoleon actually was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took it as a shot at his concept of self in being short in stature, but the whole hoof thing, that's really interesting. I didn't take it there.
It's also kind of an illusion, right? It's just another example of illusion that he's not what he seems to be. He seems to be taller than he actually is.
So they start walking around the edge there, talking, and then Pacino's walking like this, and he just has the slightest little let's see if I can it's so hard to get. The movie's so long that it jumps so fast when you just scroll the slide.
Their address was also 3S, which is weird. I don't know if that's supposed to be like three Satans and an inversion of the Trinity. And they're clearly like they're downtown. The office is obviously downtown. There's a Woolworth building in the background. The Woolworth building was the tallest building in New York till the Empire State Building. And so they're downtown, but they live uptown. So they have to go downtown because they're going down because they're going to hell. To go to where
people are asking if this is Trump Tower. Do you know?
No, it's not Trump Tower, but Trump Tower is in the movie because Craig T. Nelson's character Cullen, his apartment is Trump's apartment, and Cullen plays a real estate magnate, and so it's interesting that his apartment is actually Trump's apartment. This is like I forget the name of the building, but it's got a balcony midway.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you can look up the Devil's Advocate film locations. You can find that out. Yeah, they do use the real apartment of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's when, the guy who is accused of murdering his family, Alex Cullen, I think's his name.
Yes.
And so we'll get to that. And that's so identifiable, all the gold and the
so
very identifiable as Trump. So anyways, they're out here and they're kind of making their negotiation. And the line that I took from this scene is that he says, everything is a negotiation, Kevin. And then there's a few lines later. It's that everything is a test. This is Marianne in the next scene. She mentions to him, she goes, well, Kevin, everything seems like it's a test, talking about life, but also what they're experiencing. But here, Satan specifically talking to Kevin says, everything's a negotiation. And I thought this was really interesting because when we get to what I wrote down, again, I was my first time watching the movie, so I didn't know that his mother, and one of the things I wondered if Satan appears as different people to different people.
Yeah.
As different people to different people, if you see what I'm saying. But his mother only says one word to him in the elevator, and that's no. And so the mother only has one expression to Satan, and that's her saying no, which is emblematic of her being the antithesis of what he is.
Yes, and we know from the backstory that that's not the only expression she's ever said to him before, but that's before she knew who she knew.
Right, that's before you know that relationship. Yeah.
I wonder if he's got a Trump tie on there.
Probably. So anyways, they have their negotiation, and then this leads to him being shown, again, the right-hand man of Satan is showing Kevin the new apartment that the firm has for them. And it's this huge, beautiful apartment in New York that has an incredible view, incredible space, large, spacious, and his wife there, Marianne, you can tell she's very excited. She goes, oh, man, they must really want you if they're going to give you this. This is incredible.
Right. Yeah. She, one thing I didn't like was when she walks in and they say, we painted it white so that you can pick your palette. And she goes, palette? Like she doesn't know what a palette is for picking the apartment. That's really weird. But it's the apartment. Yeah, the apartment building is supposed to be for partners only. So he's already accelerated quickly up the ladder, right? And like you said, everything that he does is a choice in this. So if he were a true Christ-like hero in this, the moment that he's on that balcony overlooking the world and he's offered this deal, he would have said, "Get behind me, Satan," and he would have walked away and gone back to Gainesville, I guess, right?
Right.
But he continuously takes these slow deals. And also notice that when they're looking the apartment from the street, Milton's apartment is the penthouse. So he lives in a false heaven. He's in the top floor. He's in the heaven of the building, overlooking the rest of the apartment. I mean, the rest of the city. He's above everybody else, but it's false, right?
Right. And what they eventually see is that he has no bedroom.
That's right.
That it's just was one ginormous room / office, because he doesn't sleep.
Yes.
So moving forward here, so we have this city. So we see that Kevin, the law firm, Milton, Chadwick, and Waters is really offering him a lot. And so he's got an incredible paycheck, incredible apartment. And this leads to, let me change this, leads to her telling him that she just wants to have a baby. So she just wants to be a mother. And now we go back to the law firm. Now he's meeting the team, if you will. And so everybody's talking about their specialties and what they do in different types of law, different parts of the world. And so he's kind of introduced to the team, if you will. And then this leads to his wife picking out curtains and furniture and all this different stuff. And he says Kevin's able to get away from work and be with her there. So you can see at the beginning of this at the beginning of this move to New York, he's still very concerned about what she needs. So she wanted him to come help her pick out furniture and stuff for the apartment. So he's there. He's able to leave work and get there. But as he gets more engrossed in the deals and crossing the barriers for Satan, he's going to concern himself less and less and less with Marianne and his mother, and more and more about winning the case. So
yeah, they're picking out curtains with Alexander McQueen or somebody there. And he comes in and saves the day, right? Because it's $2,000 a yard or whatever. And he says, "We'll take it for $1,400. Right. Bam. Right. Deal finalized. Right. So he's always negotiating. And yeah, he's still spending time with her. They have good, of course, they were in that movie together later, right? Sweet November, right? If you've ever seen that movie, yep. I haven't seen it, but it's a romantic movie with these two. They have good chemistry.
I haven't seen Sweet November either. Okay, moving forward. This is an interesting scene because now we get exposed to these sort of flashes to what appears to be a Satanist. So at work during right here, this woman is showing him. So you can see on the TV to the left, you see the man with his face open, or with his O face there.
Yeah. Delroy Lindo doing a soy jack face on the TV.
His soy jack face. So that frame there's frozen on this man really doing what would be considered a voodoo animal sacrifice with a goat. So slitting the animal's throat in a ritualistic way, filling a bowl full of its blood, and then drinking its blood or utilizing it for some ritualistic purpose, of which that is one of the ways in which the law firm is able to get the cases accomplished, as they go to these witch doctors that can perform these rituals, of which will come later in the film when Marianne says, when she's getting ready to kill herself, that it's all blood money, that they've already killed themselves, that everything that they got was blood money, even though she wasn't privy to the rituals. What this is showing you is that it actually is the case.
Yeah. So the question here is, first of all, why would they take this case? Because we know it's not pro bono. Because later Al Pacino says, "I doubt you'll be doing your $400 an hour. I doubt you're going to be doing pro bono anytime soon." And this guy's clearly some guy living in the gutter. So why would they take it? Well, because it's blood money. Because this guy's a Satan servant, right? And she says, "What do you think of this?" And he says, "It's a health code violation, and it's a loser." Right. So,
yeah.
So now they got to go. Now they got to go down to the Bowery and go downtown into hell, the hell of New York at the time, I suppose. I don't know. I lived near the Bowery when I lived there, but it was cleaned up. But anyway, they go down there and they see Mama San, the voodoo woman outside, the voodoo priestess. Right, "Go on, get yourself out of here, Mr. Lawyer Man." Right, and by the way, they got the guy across the street.
There she is.
Yeah. And the guy across the street says, don't go in there, lawyer man. Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Right. And she's got the dog, and then she hisses at him or whatever. And he says, go on, get to you. Right. And so then they go into the hell, and then they go into the bowels of the building, into the true hell world down there, where they see all kinds of weird Pachamamas. One of the little Pachamamas has a phallic symbol as part of the stonework and is like draining blood into a basin. He goes into his old Frigidaire. He pulls out the goat meat.
He pulls out a tongue, a cow tongue.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He pulls out a cow tongue because, again, this black dude's the guy that's getting ready to be on trial. And he tells him, look, I'm here from Milton, the law firm. I'm here to represent you. And the guy says, okay, who are we up against? And he names the prosecutor. And he says, okay. And he gets up and he goes in this fridge. He grabs this. You can't really tell what it is. It turns out to be a cow tongue, which he opens up here and he twists the tongue. So he's tongue tied. And he twists the tongue, and then he says, I'll take care of it from here. So you already assume that he's getting ready to do some black ritual, some black magic on this guy's tongue. And he says he won't be able to speak, or we'll get some silence or something like that. So
we're going to twist, tie tongue, the cow man, the lawyer man. Bo! And then he cuts it.
Which is what happens. So you have this whole scene. So you're kind of like, what's going on here? Like, this is clearly some satanic ritual.
Yeah.
And next thing you know is that it's his wife, Marianne, and she's getting all different types of greens, different types of colors to present at the apartment. And the demonic wife of the man who's the right hand of Al Pacino here, she always says how the green's off, the green's not good. Now, in Orthodoxy, green is a color associated with the Holy Spirit. So I don't know if that is utilizing this. I was trying to think, well, maybe is there particular importance to green for her apartment? Green can be associated with life. Green's also used to symbolize money, which is mammon. So I was trying to decipher. I don't know if you had any particular thoughts on that.
Well, nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. So I think that it's green and life, and they don't like that. But also the green she chooses, let me put on my interior designer hat here. The green that she's chosen is kind of a psychiatric green, right? It's a little too clinical. So I think but it is kind of foreshadowing where she ends up, right?
Yeah, there's first green.
That's more of a teal green. Right.
Another green. He's getting books on health codes and stuff. She has other wallpaper. And this chick, the black chick there, she is always telling her, like, no, this is the wife to the right-hand man. And she's clearly demonic. Becomes more apparent as the film goes on.
I forgot that she is Mrs. Lehman, right? So he's Lehman. He's Lehman Brothers. And so this is prior to that whole thing, but that was still a thing. So she's in charge of, she represents money, right? Money and whatever.
Right. And she confesses that she doesn't give a damn. Like, she has to create an appointment to be with her husband.
Right.
So she makes a point. This actually comes, I think, in the next scene when they all go shopping and stuff, that Marianne, Keanu Reeves' wife, talks about how, oh my gosh, he's working so much and he's got to be here so we can have a baby and start a family. And she's like, well, you can always just make an appointment like I do with, I forget what her husband's name is. I can pull it up real quick.
Something Lehman, Mr. Lehman.
So they're Lomax, Kevin and Marianne Lomax, and then they are. Oh no, his first name's Lehman. His name's Lehman Heath.
Oh,
Jackie Heath.
Oh, where shall we meet Macbeth in thunder, lightning, or in rain? Upon the heath, right? So they're trying to induct her into their kind of witches coven, because there's the two wives and then there's her, right? And she's the young one, so that
she is Jackie Heath, and he is Lehman Heath. And so, anyways, she admits that, oh yeah, when I want to spend time with Lehman, I just make an appointment with him. And Marianne's like blown away that this is the way relationships works. And this woman, Jackie Heath here, is totally okay with it because she's like, well, what do you expect? Look at what I get in return. And she's pointing to the apartment, the wealth, the lifestyle, the luxury. And basically she's like, if you can't have a relationship with him, you can have a relationship with his money. And they're like, ha ha
ha. Heath, Lomax, and Geddes are all place names, are all English or Scots-Irish place names. I just know that. Geddes is the name of the creeper.
Yeah.
But Getty is also obviously supposed to represent Getty, like J. Paul Getty.
Lloyd Geddes.
Right. And Lomax is like the low forgotten country. That's where he comes, because he comes from Gainesville. And the Heath is the barren treeless landscape of like the marsh and the bog in Scotland and Ireland. So they're like there's nothingness. That's where the weird sisters hang out in Macbeth.
Interesting. So this moves forward. So you see that this woman's really up to something, because she always has negative opinions on anything that Marianne comes up with. And so this goes forward. And here's when she talks about how she has to make an appointment with Lehman, and that, no, this is totally fine. Look at what we have, because they're clearly now in her apartment because she was working to furnish theirs. And so, okay, so you see kind of how the wives interact with all this stuff. Now we're into trial, and Keanu Reeves is defending the man. Actually, there's a line there that I wanted to say about when the two women are sitting together, and that she says, and I mentioned this earlier, that the women who are with these men have to choose three things. They either work themselves, they either play, or they breed. And that's the scene where they're sitting on the couch when Marianne makes it clear that she wishes to breed, and the black woman, she clearly wishes to play, and that's her whole thing, is that she's going to play with the money. Marianne still wants to breed. So now we move to the court case where we see Keanu Reeves, Kevin Lomax, defending the Satanist that was doing the goat sacrifice voodoo ritual that the police stopped in process. And he's trying to argue that this is clearly just some health violation, but that's actually not where he goes. He says, well, he defends him by talking about how this is just this gentleman's utilization of his First Amendment right to practice his religion, and that who are we to say what's good or bad? And that, well, look at Christians, they drink blood and flesh with wine and bread, and that this guy, he's just doing something similar. He's just sacrificing a goat, and I'm sure it was done sloppily, and sure he could have done it in a more appropriate way for health measures, but this is just a freedom of religion, and there's no reason to prosecute this man. He's totally innocent. And
yeah, he talks about kosher law, and he says, Judge, I think you of all people would know about this. And he's like, I think I know a little something about this. Right. So
it's a Jewish judge, obviously, who is familiar with kosher.
But he appeals to, it's the sense of American religious freedom. This man can worship his goats and drink blood whenever he wants. Of course, he blasphemes in his argument, right?
And this is where Satan at the end of the movie thanks him. He thanks Kevin for saying, well, aren't you the one that said that there's no difference between a Satanist and the Pope or a Hindu or a Buddhist, that they're all just eating at the same trough? And he's like laughing because in which I would say then is pointing to ecumenism, this idea that all the religions are the same, which is like the ultimate game of Satanists. We're seeing now in the U.S. that they're filing for the religious freedom to do ritualistic abortions. There's two religious groups that are arguing for that. I won't mention the second one, but two groups that are arguing for abortions as part of their religious rights. LGBTQ issues, the Church of Satan is one of the leading catalysts in defending and promoting those things as religious freedom. So it's like ecumenism and this idea that all religions lead to the same point. All you have to do then is create a religion that transgresses all the values of all the other religions or whatnot, and doesn't matter because it's all relative, because it's all freedom of religion. And that's where Satan, you see, he's really thankful for Kevin making that argument.
They put this dude in a nice Armani suit for this thing, right? He was a minute ago, he was down in the depths with his,
literally,
you know,
literally in
well,
a satanic basement somewhere.
yeah. So
So
Al must have hooked him up with Armani,
yeah.
and then this
And this
guy's like,
guy, the
yeah,
prosecutor, he starts getting tongue-tied, if you will, where he just starts coughing over and over and over, and he can't defend himself. He can't say I object or anything like that. And so Keanu Reeves is able to just move forward with his argument over and over again, and there's no objection. And then the judge, being
the judge
familiar
says,
with the
"For
kosher
God's
law, just
sake,
goes
man,
forward with
spit it out. Come on, what's wrong with you?" I like the judge.
There he is, right
Yeah,
there.
this dude.
There's the judge, quite familiar with the kosher laws, and then verdict comes on the side of Kevin, and so you see again Satan right there, congratulating him and thanking him for his great work.
Yeah.
Now we're back into the market. This is actually another good scene where he's walking around talking to Kevin and giving him different insights into things. One of the big ones here that I took away is he emphasizes to never let them see you coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so during this sort of going back and forth with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves, Satan, Al Pacino, is telling Kevin, Keanu Reeves, that, you know, you got a lot of great qualities, but the one that's probably to your most detriment is the fact that, again, you dress so cleanly, you stand out, you're so sort of visible, that what makes him so great is that people never see him coming. And this is, again, you can think about the slyness of Satan, how his whole job is to get you to buy into something where you don't see it coming and you don't recognize that that's Satan. That's when he's the most vicious and he's the most effective at his work of trying to pervert your free will. And so he was talking to Kevin here, is that what you really need to work on is you need to be like me. You need to be able to get better at making sure they never see you coming, which is the point in how he's used to defend the Donald Trump like character who kills his family, his wife, his son, and is having a sexual relation, not just with other women, but with his stepdaughter. So we see another pedophilic incest relationship, i.e. Biden family. And so he puts him on that case because, again, he's a young and upcomer. So the other people will never see him coming just because he had no reputation really in the New York scene at that point.
Yes, when he's up in his tower, he's got his Armani suit on or whatever, and his tie pin. And now when he's on the street, he's got his street clothes on and his flat cap, right?
Yeah.
And he's descending into the bowels of, you know, I suppose now they're in Chinatown.
Yeah.
And he goes up to the man. Well, first he gives the story, a kind of a parable, like a satanic parable about being underestimated and how, you know, the woman, and look at me, little old me, I'm the one who did that to her. Look at me, right? And then he turns around and he sees the man who owns the shop, and he says, "Ting da wa, shush wine," right? And he goes up and he talks to the guy in Mandarin,
right? Which he showed that he's like knowledgeable of all tongues, right?
All languages.
Throughout the movie, people come up to him in different languages, and he can respond to them in their appropriate language.
Yes, and he says, "You got to see it. There's this chicken who can play tic-tac-toe." Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, which
well,
is
Aaron makes a comment here. He says, "Fallen had time is on my side. This one has paint it black." Interesting point.
Yep.
Shout out to Aaron again for sponsoring today's stream.
Yes, Painted Black is the end credits Rolling Stones song. And Sympathy for the Devil was in one of the ones we did.
It was Fallen as well, I believe.
Yeah, it was Fallen, right? Okay. And so yeah, he tells him about being underestimated. He talks to the man in Mandarin. I suppose it's Mandarin. There's gold in the background. The guy in the background back there, that old man, that old friendly man back there, does kind of weird demonic faces when they're talking, which is slightly weird. And then when they're walking around the corner in that scene, because they're three, so it's 555 right there. I suppose they made it that so it wouldn't be 666. I guess it would be too obvious. And then they turn the corner, and when he says subways, gotta learn them. But before that, when they're walking, you notice there's a guy walking with a box behind him on the street, and the box says Halo on it. So there's a halo, says Halo, and there's like a light halo, and it's right behind Keanu Reeves' character.
No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so it's subtle symbolism, which is not accidental because all the street scenes in movies are with extras doing the same thing every time. It's all choreographed.
Right.
Then he says subways, got to learn them because they're going to go into the subways. They're going into the hell world beneath the city. That's how how he gets around the city is by going through the tunnels, which is obviously supposed to be a subterranean.
Gershom says there really is that chicken on Mott Street.
Oh, really? No, yes. That shouts out to our homeboy out there. He would know. He's New Yorker. That's crazy. There's a chicken that plays tic-tac-toe. Chicken, I guess. I don't know. The cock crows. Tic-tac-toe, unwinnable game, war games. I'm just going through my autistic mind here to try to find symbolism with that.
Yeah, in this scene, Keanu Reeves gets home from work. Again, he's out walking in the city with Al Pacino, Satan here, and they have this real high-end, elegant, how would you call it, a sort of ball, sort of get-together of people who work at the firm.
Yeah.
And
firm cocktail party.
There you go, a firm cocktail party. And he comes home a little late. So they got to leave in like 30 minutes or so. And she's not ready. She's been waiting on him. And she makes a claim about how, she just wishes that he'd be home long enough for them to make love, or that he can't impregnate her unless he's home long enough to sleep with her.
That's right.
And so they sleep with each other. And the next thing you know, then they're in the elevator on their way to the ballroom. She's dressed up looking very pretty.
Yes.
Much prettier than she looks now, in my opinion.
Definitely. Because she's Skittles now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if she is particularly, but people related to her are Skittles. I'm not going to say any more than that. You have to, if you know, I guess. But
if
she's a strong supporter of that. But she's got her pearl necklace on, her pearl bracelet. She's looking good. She's got her heels on. He didn't have to change it all because he had his firm gear on.
No, but he always looks so slick.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they get there, and then they're kind of. She asked him one thing: promise me you won't leave me. And she like grabs his hand, and they hold hands.
Yes.
This is sort of the symbolic takeaway of this scene, because it's really here where he kind of turns his back on Mary Ann moving forward throughout the film, in which they go to this thing. You can see the head. What is he? The director of the law firm or something like that?
He's the managing director of the law firm. So he's the Beelzebub character. I mean, he's red haired, so it's flames.
Yeah, Eddie Barzoon.
Yeah, so Barzoon, Beelzebub, and also that's the actor Jeffrey Jones, who is I don't know. I mean, it's not alleged, but Creeper by record. And we've discussed him in our Beetlejuice stream. Go back and watch our Beetlejuice
stream. Oh, my
stream.
gosh. Yeah. He was Beetlejuice. You're right.
So he walks in and he immediately says, you got to meet some people. This scene, I think, really works well. And the aftermath of it, because they do something clever here, which is that on the one hand, she is super annoying. Because anybody who's ever been to a cocktail party with your, significant other or a date or whatever, and you have to hold hands with them the whole time and you can't walk around and mingle, and then they get mad at you because you're not paying attention to them and you're just mingling at the party, that's annoying, right? Be your own person. But on the other hand, this is the start of him turning his back on her. And she knows that he's there for work and like he is beholden to the law firm. So if we just take it on the surface, right, she should know that. But on the other hand, he is clearly vain, and he clearly is turning his back on his wife. Like as time goes on, he rarely even sees her. So this is like really the start of it.
Yeah, this is the start, because right before it, again, he's like comes home late, but he makes the commitment. Okay, well, let's make love. And then they go to the ball here. She's looking beautiful. She holds his hand, just asks him, don't leave me. She just wants to be by his side. And basically right away, you see the law firm pulling him away from her, of which she kind of stays holding his hand, but she's trailing behind. But this will lead to eventually him getting somewhere where so they're introducing, and then this guy pulls him away. So now he's gone.
That was Senator Alphonse D'Amato, the real senator. So he introduces him to two government people, one of whom is Alphonse D'Amato. And then and notice that Pacino, and there's in the background is the Lebanese, I think, arms dealer. And then notice that Pacino, yeah, right there on the right is Alphonse D'Amato, and then the guy on the left, I forget who the guy on the left is. Somebody from New York will know. Our homeboy will know. But it's like imagine, right? We're making this movie about Satan, right? And we need politicians who are beholden to Satan. Do you want to be in the movie? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. Right? That's crazy because that's them in real life. And then notice that Al Pacino is the only guy in the whole party without a tie on. He can do what he wants. He's chill. He's laid back, and he's over there. Everybody over there is going to know that I'm talking to you because they're all looking at us, right?
Right. Want to tell everybody, smash that like, and also if you want to support the stream, feel free to sending in a super chat. We do have a few super chats over on Streamlabs, and I'll get to those in just a few. Just don't want to break up the momentum here moving through the film. Let's see. Next one. So this scene again, he sort of introduces his wife, and he's introduced to these people, senator, arms dealer, and then he's kind of pulled away and told him that, he needs to see something. He got to handle some type of business. And so what happens is naturally his wife is left alone, and she's left with the demonic women.
Right.
The one of the women, so that woman right there, she works at the law firm. Then the other two you'll see here, they are the wife of Balzoon. And that's Eddie Barzoon's wife, and that is Lehman Heath's wife. And
so this is kind of a again like a Macbethian weird sisters thing here, where they're trying to get her into their coven. And also notice that they represent the three variations of what she said women do, because she wants to breed, they play, and the other woman, who's the secretary woman, is the working woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
And let's see, somebody had a good point. Sabrina said, makes me wonder if these celebs are true believers in the Skittles nonsense. Well, that we hit on that earlier in the kind of prologue that we did to watching the movie here. And I think that a good example with that's not is like what Tristan talks about basically, and that is in Brave New World, which is where, not relating to the Skittles thing, but relating to, like, for instance, veganism and meat eating. It's like the alphas in Brave New World eat meat, right? They don't have to eat meat cubes like slave slop. They can eat whatever they want, so they don't have to believe in it. It's everybody else that has to do it. So that kind of plays on that a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And like Michelle says, some do go along with it, just as be afraid to not be blackballed, or kind of, stand out of the crowd from the other people. And that's kind of, again, insinuated in the movie here.
Blackballed is also, just as a side note, if for the folks at home, blackballing is a term that comes from secret societies, clubs, and Masonic rituals, because like in fraternities, there's a box, and every member puts in a white ball for if they want the person to be approved to join. It's anonymous. You go up and there's a little tray, and you grab it. Nobody can see what color it is, and you put it in the slot. And if there's a black ball, then it means the person can't join because one person was against it.
Oh, interesting.
And that's what this is, right? He's being inducted into this thing.
Right. So here we see Mary Ann, her first encounter with Al Pacino's character, John Milton, Satan. And so you see him very receptive, constantly asking questions. He's always getting people to say, again, because that's the theme. It's all based on your choices. So he's always asking questions to get people to say one thing or another. So this ends up with her and him on the couch. And this is the scene where the devil wants Mary Ann to cut her hair. So he's like looking at her. She's beginning to like spill her heart to him. Like, oh, Kevin's not home enough. And we need to, I want to have a family and all this different stuff. I know how hard he works. And then this guy's not even interested in Kevin. He's just interested in Mary Ann. And he's telling her how pretty she is, and basically, would you be okay if I have one criticism? And she's like, sure. What is it? You don't like my hair? He's like, no, I love your hair. I just think that your hair it needs to be put up. And that this is where he makes the comment about the shoulders and the neck, I believe.
The shoulders are the front lines of a woman's mystique.
Yeah.
And her neck represents the eternal battleground between the mind and the body. Right. And notice he's behind her when he says that. So just like he was behind Kevin,
Right.
Satan is behind me. And they're also looking in a mirror. So he's appealing to her vanity. And
it comes
also,
right. Yeah. So he wants her to lift her hair and get her hair off her shoulders, which again, I said hair historically is always a sign of fertility for women, virility for men, men's beards, men's facial hair.
Curly hair, curly hair is a sign of sexual verve and virility. And it's interesting that he wants her to straighten her hair and take away the blonde, because ultimately he wants her to not bear children because of what he will do later. So now he is looking at her in the mirror, warped. Her vision is warped here slightly.
Yep. You can see she's very focused on herself now, where before she was very focused on Kevin. Kevin's turned his back on her. He's being led into all the different businesses, in and outs. They're at the law, or with people related to the law firm. And Satan here is convincing her that she needs to cut her hair, which she does. And the next couple scenes, all of a sudden, her hair is darker. She's not lightening her hair anymore, and it's not curly, and it's straight and it's short. It's like right at her, below, just past her ears.
It doesn't match your eyes. It doesn't bring out the green in your eyes. There's green again. Green in literature, I've in a lot of the streams we've covered, green is a sign of oncoming, some sort of oncoming evil, like the emerald stone, like in Great Gatsby, it's in Frankenstein, it's in Dracula, the green vapor. Not with her, obviously, it's just a sign of her eyes, but he wants to bring that out.
Right. So we see her sort of demeanor change in this scene, and then we see Kevin. Oh boy.
So we see him go out. I'll narrate while you do this. So we see him go out, and he again goes out on the balcony, but this time he meets with flame-haired Lilith, I suppose, in her red dress, right? She's the Scarlet Woman. And this looks like a set. This is a green screen, so they probably didn't film this on location, or they put a green screen up. But what's interesting is that Milton comes out and he like grazes her body with his fingers, which mirrors what Cullen, you were talking about with Cullen, and is an INCEST thing that we're going to learn later on. But she also, that's Connie Nielsen. I mean, she's beautiful. She's a Danish actress. She was in Gladiator. And I think that she came straight from Denmark right before this started. And this is like her first English speaking role, but she's seen in the movie speaking Italian in one scene. She works at the firm. So she also speaks all the languages.
Right. And so she is a very beautiful woman. She is that sort of Lilith character. And you always see there's only one scene in which her hair is not up. And that's at the end when she's supposed to mate with her brother. They find out that eventually they're half siblings. But you see when John Milton, Satan, comes up to her, he does touch her in a similar way, which connects him with Getty, the pedophile from the school. And then also the Donald Trump-like real estate mogul, New York figure who's having a relationship with his stepdaughter that is made apparent there at the end. So yeah, the INCEST thing is prominent in this film, and you see that she's basically what's insinuated. She's had relationships with John Milton, and
she's Skittles in real life also.
And for some reason, Kevin, again, his wife's beautiful, but he's very interested in this woman here, which will come back up in a later scene. So they have a conversation. She's teasing him and whatnot. John Milton eventually comes up. She's another demon who's going to play a figure, but Marianne just goes around and she's constantly asking, do you know where Kevin is? Do you know where Kevin is? So she's now out of the trance, if you will, the spell that Satan casted over her, and her hair is back down. And just look at the women. Notice how all the women's hair is up. Her hair is back down, and she's now concerned again, not with herself, but with Kevin and finding Kevin, of which she eventually gives up and goes home. And Kevin comes home at like 3 a.m. in the morning because he goes up, and now he's in Satan's apartment for the first time with the boys, and they're making, you know, secret deals and stuff of such. So he kind of stays up here for the rest of the night until he comes home, and there's Marianne at 3 a.m. still drinking and smoking,
Drinking
and
some
up
Johnny Black. Right. Looking at, in the mirror again. Now she's in profile. So there are two of her kind of here. So now she's sort of splitting because there's one of her.
Yes, because
and one that wants to leave.
Yep.
The one and the version of her in the mirror actually is in darkness, right? And it's almost ghost-like. Also, when she went up to the secretary at the party, she said, "Have you seen Kevin?" The secretary said something. She has a line like, he better stay here or he'll be damned, or something like that. And then when they go into Milton's apartment, by the way, the apartment has so much symbolism in it. There's the Gnostic Freemasonic checkerboard floor.
Yep.
There's the background sculpture. The background sculpture is a real it's a heart sculpture. That the sculptor and the National Cathedral in DC sued the filmmakers because the sculpture is called Ex Nihilo, and it's supposed to represent creation. And they took the sculpture because it's one of the capstones. I don't know where it is. The National Cathedral is an Episcopal cathedral, but they used the likeness of it, and then they make it into a demonic sculpture here with like hell beings in it, and they warp it, and they didn't give credit. So they were sued by the sculptor and the cathedral. And then she goes back to her apartment. Yeah.
Wow. The next scene is, you can see there's like tension there. And so they don't really resolve it. She's seen actually going down the hallway into a red room.
Yes.
So very symbolic here that she's basically tells him to screw off, that she's tired of like him and what he's doing. And she flees to a room, again, isolated by herself, but into this really, again, very iconic symbolism there. So this leads to, now they're being presented with this guy. What was his name? Alex
Cullen.
Cullen. Yeah, Alexander Cullen. And so Alexander Cullen is the guy there in the center, and he's accused of killing his wife, his son. Was it just them two? I thought it was 3 people, and maybe the maid or something.
And the maid, yes.
Yeah. And so what we find out is that this Alexander Cullen guy, he's a real estate mogul there in New York, building towers, building apartment buildings, all this type of stuff. And he has a clause in his prenuptial agreement in which if he is found in fidelity, if he's found in an adulterous relationship, I believe she then gets half of his wealth or half of his money or something of that nature. And so the day that he killed her, she found out that he was having an affair, and she had evidence of it. And this angered him so much because he didn't want her to get his money that he went home and confronted her about it, killed her. His son probably saw it, so he killed his son, and the maid saw it, and he killed the maid. And so ended up 3 people were dead. And the main suspect was this guy, Alexander Cullen, who's, again, incredibly wealthy. And there was a prior experience that this Al Pacino guy, John Milton, was able to get him out of earlier. So they already had a familiar relationship, clearly one in which Alexander Cullen doesn't want to participate in again, but knows that he has to. He's reluctant for Keanu Reeves, Kevin, to be his lawyer because he's sort of a young guy. He's like, really, this guy? I think I'll go somewhere else. And Pacino, John Milton's like, look, you're going to want us. And he's like, he eventually agrees and accepts Keanu Reeves to be the guy. So I have, this is where Kevin really gets the homicide case. And he's been now turning his back on the promises of his wife. And this is now he's diving full into this new job, the ultimate job he can do for Milton. Was it Crestwick and Waters?
Chadwick.
That's it.
I know that because I knew of a Chadwick Antiques.
Oh, okay. Nice recall there. Anything you want to say about this and where we're at in the film now?
Yeah. So So Cullen is, the Trump figure. He's a real estate mogul, like you said. And that also ties weirdly into the recent case. Remember with the South Carolina guy who did the same thing and he was just convicted. He was a lawyer. Of course, that had something to do with money, some sort of money laundering, some sort of scheme going on, but it's the same sort of case here. Also, they're up in his tower, but notice how this is a tower that's being built. It hasn't been built yet. Because they're still building up Kevin. And also it's a tower without walls, right? The barriers are being broken down here. He says to him, you're going to need to take Kevin, which is it's like an innocent, it's like a boyish name almost, right? So you're going to take this youthful guy, and he's like, what are you joking? And Cullen is Craig T. Nelson. It's interesting that his thing deals with his family because, this is a stretch, but you may know Craig T. Nelson from Poltergeist, right? Which is about demonic possession and his family. And he was also Coach, by the way. He played Coach in that terrible sitcom. But he's overlooking the city, and he says, like, no, I'm going to go with somebody else. And they really go hard. It doesn't seem like they go hard, but they do go hard. They're like, he looks at Kevin, and Kevin says, you can go with somebody. Well, first Al Pacino says, you know how this city is. You got a lot of old haters, and you're going to, you got the vultures are going to start swarming, meaning him, because he has blackmail on him because of his case before, right? And he has ties to all these people in the city if he doesn't go with him. And he uses Kevin, and Kevin says to him, we've got a palm print. We've got a blood print. We've got your murder weapon, and you got to issue a statement today. Right. And the guy's like, all right, I'll think about it. So he decides to go with him. And of course they got the managing director right there, Barzoon, who is really tall. He's like 6'8".
Is he really that tall?
He's something like that. I saw that. Barron Trump is 6'7".
Yeah, dude, that kid's ginormous.
Yeah.
So they go back and forth. Eventually, he relents and lets Kevin Lomax be his attorney. And he basically wants to put out a public statement right away. So now it cuts, and we see that Marianne, she's cut her hair, she's dyed it, and it's straight. So the exact opposite of what it was. And she is now, hanging out with these sort of demonic wives, if you will. And they're clearly on some type of shopping spree, buying clothes, going to these really high-end places. They're day drinking. Yeah. And we're going to try to avoid anything explicit that could get this stream taken down. So I'm going to skip through it here. But basically, we're going to leave it right here at this clip. We see the day drinking. Jackie Heath, the black woman, she wants Marianne to see her breast, and she keeps asking her, are they real or are they fake? Are they real or they're fake? And she goes, well, if they look real, then they are real. And she goes, no, but you got to feel. And she walks over, and she kind of is reluctant to touch him, but she like grabs her hand and forces her to grab her breast. And she's like, squeeze them. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, do they feel real? Oh yeah, they feel real. And then she tells her what doctor she got them done from. And like both these women start getting naked in front of her and trying on clothes and stuff. But you can see, they're not who they say they are. Well, when she's then putting her dress on, the black woman, she sort of, Marianne can see who she really is. And so she sees her not as this beautiful woman putting on this beautiful dress, but as this hideous demonic creature with like nasty teeth and a hideous face. And it freaks her out, and she just leaves right here from this scene, goes straight home. Doesn't tell him where she's going, doesn't talk to anybody. She just goes straight home.
They show that they're actual demons. This shot is a weird shot because you see in between the two women on the right, there's the weird angle right there of whatever that is on the wall. And then in the mirror over here, the mirror is at like a diagonal angle and the lines don't meet up. So it's trying to show you, and then there's a set of mirrors over there and there's a set of mirrors over there. So the mirror imagery always appears with Charlize Theron. So she's not even looking in the mirrors, by the way. She's faced away from them. She's not looking at them. So the appeal to her vanity is not working. And she sees things as they really are, where these women are looking in the warped mirrors, and we can see that they aren't who they say they are. I got to take a break real quick. I just chugged 2 Red Bulls, so I got.
Go ahead.
I'll be
Go
right back.
ahead. We'll hold it down for you. So yeah, that great point. So we see, and this is where Marianne basically, her psyche basically breaks after this point, because she becomes terrified of these women and terrified of everybody who Keanu Reeves is working with at this point, because again, she sees them as the demons that they really are. And so we're going to skip through this, where I don't want to again show any nudity, but we're gonna get through it. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and then she goes home, and so now it cuts to her being home, and Keanu Reeves being there, and he's trying to calm Marianne down, like, look, it's okay, it's not what you think it is. Why did you just leave? You didn't tell anybody where you're going. And she's like, I gotta go, Kevin. I gotta go. I can't deal with this. And so they're having an argument about this whole thing. You can see she's freaked out about it, and you see that her demeanor, the color in her eyes, she's becoming again more and more of this sort of psychotic figure. I mentioned that basically now, after the scene that we just got into, her psyche's breaking. And this is now her as this new altered person. So again, her hair's cut, her hair's totally different. The color of her skin, she's getting again fainter and fainter. The blackness around her eyeball, she's unable to sleep, and she's begging Kevin that, no, look, we gotta go. Screw this apartment, screw New York, screw all this money you're making. I got to get out of here. These people aren't who they seem they are, or who you think they are. And he's trying to calm her down. And basically she's like, you're going to leave me, aren't you? You think I'm crazy. And he then consoles her and tries to tell her, look, baby, let's make a baby right now. Like, I love you. I'm committed to you. I'm not going to leave you. You want to have a baby? Let's try to get pregnant right now. And what happens is they try to go through that process, and she's open to it, but he starts falling into a fantasy with the other woman.
Connie Nielsen, the Scarlet woman.
The woman with orange hair.
Yeah.
See if I can get
There's a weird thing that they do with this is one of her best roles, honestly, because she has very few speaking lines, and you believe that she's going crazy here. I mean, like you said, this isn't all makeup and hair. This is like, you can see it in her eyes that something is wrong and something's troubling her. And even to the extent where everybody in the apartment knows that there's something wrong with her. And Milton himself, Satan, Al Pacino, will say, look, you got to take care of your wife, right? Even he says that. He says that because he's revealing a little bit of truth to Keanu Reeves to say, look, your wife's crazy, to test him to see what his boundaries will be and whether he will go for his wife or not. But the fact is,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, this is one of the things, this works well because, yes, it is like Rosemary's Baby, and she's in this uptown apartment, and she's cut her hair. She's got the kind of pixie haircut. Yes, says Malaforte. Yes, she's like, is totally Rosemary's Baby, and everybody's in on it, but it also does it, and it takes it in a different direction, because in that one we have like a Satan cult that is gaslighting her. In this one, it's demons. Like, they're not just Satan worshipers. These are actual demons. And the thing is that even by her saying, like, you're going to leave me, aren't you? Like, she has to ask that because she's afraid of it. But even by asking that, it puts it into the air that he's going to leave her, right? Or that we're afraid that he's going to leave her. And it also, we can tell that all the things that are happening to her can be easily viewed by him and by these other people as like, that it's schizophrenia. There's something wrong with her. But this is real. This is really happening to her.
Right. And related to that, leaving her, that's why the scene, they begin to make love. He wants to give her a baby. But when they're doing that, he's thinking of another woman, and they stop. And she asks him to stop because she's like, you're not here anymore. Where are you? Where are you, Kevin? Which shows you that he's already left her. Right. Yeah. So he's emotionally, mentally left her at this point. And so he's still physically there. And throughout the movie, he'll still be physically there, but he has left her. And he really isn't until she kills herself that he like comes back to a sort of sober mind state about his relationship with her.
Yeah, and the one interesting thing is that we have, like, just in terms of making the film, it's like Keanu Reeves has 2 simultaneous sex scenes, right? He's with her, she's nude in the scene, partially nude, and so is the demon woman. So when they're filming the scenes, it's like we have her film her scene, and then we have the other girl film her scene. But the difference in terms of the interpretation is really strong. Like when you see the other woman, it's not just the way she looks, it's like the way that the ambiance in the scene is like, this is clearly the demon woman. And when you see Charlize Theron, it's wholesome. They're husband and wife. They're just, sharing what a husband and wife do. Right. And it's wholesome. And even though you're seeing her nude, it's like, she wants to make a baby, right? She wants him to be there with her. And that's also ironic because she says, where are you? But also she's the one who's been leaving, right? Because they're kind of forcing her out of her own mind.
True. And she wants normality, clearly. So
right.
At this point, we see, I wrote down, this is the full turning his back on his wife. Demon friends encourage plastic surgery. I thought that was another interesting thing during that scene where they try to get the breast. Part of it was encouraging the sort of manipulation of your flesh, of your presentation, of who you think you are, what other people perceive you as. So they're talking about like nose jobs and boob jobs and all this different stuff, which, again, you look in the 21st century and look at the prevalence now of women engaging in these things: lip fillers, cheek fillers, chin fillers, getting their Brazilian butt lift, fake breasts, all this different stuff, nose jobs. Totally way more prevalent now in the 21st century than it was even at this time, even though at this time it was still somewhat normal. But it's interesting that the movie makes that association between those practices and the demons trying to get her, this natural, beautiful girl from Florida, to participate in the same things they've done.
It's also funny because they're already wearing a skin suit, right? I mean, they're demons putting on human flesh.
It's not clear the relationship between the demon and the humans, or if the humans became the demons through continually capitulating to it. But at this point, they are demonic. They are demons in the film. Whether they were humans that became the demons or demons that are appearing as human is ambivalent.
So, like, they're like with the hobo demons, right? The hobo demons they are wearing the skin suit of the hobo. That's their costume. Their costume that is a human being. That's the hobo demon, right? These ladies, their costume is how they're presented in the movie, and yet they still are pushing to change their bodies from that. So it's pure. It's like you said. It's just purely to get her to modify her body to change.
Right. And I took it, even the hobo demons who kill Eddie Barzoon, that what it is that it's the people who have become demons by their being an advocate for the devil. And so whether you're a hobo or whether you're wearing the nicest apartments in New York, that you never know who you're talking to. Anybody could be a demon is what I took that as, and that these were people that have somehow given themselves over to their demonic impulses. And so they were demons because they're literally beating a man to death for his watch and the money in his wallet and stuff like that. That's how I read that as.
I guess, I guess you could say in a way they're showing their true face. I mean, they have their persona means mask. So they're showing their true face, or they're showing who they are in the afterlife, right? They're showing what their real face is like, which is this demon, this demon figure.
Right.
She's so sad. I mean, she's great in this. Oh man, he be Mr. Sucktoes on the Scarlet Woman. Oh boy. Oh boy, man.
He does. He starts sucking her toes and adds the Scarlet Woman, which was really his half sister in the movie.
Yeah, Kinko Reeves. I didn't know you were into that ST. What's that? Suck toes. That's why she's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, she goes, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Stop that. That's weird.
Well, which shows in a way it's like fetishes, sexual fetishes can be a sort of demonic entrapment.
I think it's also, I mean, you were talking about Skittles at the beginning. I mean, that's kind of Skittle-ish.
Yeah,
right?
it's getting into like sexual fetishes.
Yes, I mean that's that's like phallic or something. I don't know what that is. It's weird. That's real weird. He's also making these faces, you know, like he does that at the beginning of the movie when he looks in the mirror. He takes off. By the way, the first thing he does in the bathroom when he goes in there and the creeper guy comes in, and then the reporter, "Hey, Joe Bob," right, is he takes off his wedding ring. So he takes off his wedding ring. So he's it's like a sign of the fact that he's going to be unfaithful to Christ. He's unfaithful to his wife, and he's going to go into this journey. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler, when he wakes up and he's looking in the mirror, sees himself for who he is now because he's made the choice, then he puts back on the wedding ring. Why would he take his wedding ring off to wash his hands like that? You're gonna leave it there, dude. You're gonna leave it at the terminal at Spirit Airlines, man. Don't take it off.
Really? Great point. So next scene, now we're in Trump's apartment, of which
like
you can
literally.
clearly see.
Yeah,
it's definitely Trump. Gold everywhere. It looks like you're in like some palace in Venice.
Right. Very, very fancy. As he says in American Psycho, American Gardens building, right? Central Park West. So they're on Central Park. Have you ever been to Central Park or New York?
I've never been to New York.
So New York is crazy because it's laid out in a grid, so it's real easy. You know, the avenues go north south and the streets go east west. So it's like you just go to the grid point. It's really easy to find. But Central Park is a rectangle. It's like a perfect rectangle cut out of the middle of the city. And New York's Manhattan is an island, so it's like 8 miles long or whatever it is. But having an address on Central Park like that is, I mean, we were talking about this in the last stream. That is probably near the Dakota building where Mark David Chapman smoked John Lennon, right there on Central Park.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I've not been to Central Park. I've never been to New York City, never been to the state of New York, never even drove through it, never even had a connecting flight in New York. So I've never set foot inside the state of New York. Yeah.
Well, I lived there for a year, and that was all I could say. It's the greatest city. It's like the greatest city in the world. But it, like when they say New York never sleeps, like it never sleeps. I would get off my bartending job at like 3 a.m. and it just never stops. And it's great. It's great if you have a lot of money or no money. But like if you're just a regular person, it's pretty hard.
Yeah. Okay, so now I get to the point where we see the Trump character. The big takeaway here is that this guy pulls out a gun and Keanu Reeves goes off, and he makes the point that this is my job to protect you, because he still wants to protect himself. He still has a gun for self-defense. He's like, you don't know, there's crazy people in this city, and people are making threats against my life. And Keanu Reeves says, look, you are now alleged to commit 3 homicides. You need to not have a gun on your person. And so he convinced him to give the gun over. And this is where my job is to protect you, Alex, the guy who murdered. And so protect the guilty from punishment and justice is this just general theme over and over of what does protection of evil mean? And the protection of evil is really just the protection. It's the delaying of the inevitable justice that's always going to occur. And so that's true generally in this film. Now he gets out of he's not convicted, but of course his soul is going to be totally ripped apart. The fact that he killed his family, he's totally obsessed with himself, and he was a pedophile with his own stepdaughter.
He clearly killed his family. Yeah. I mean, there's they don't show it. They show the aftermath. But when you look at this guy, I mean, when he was up on the tower and he said, I didn't kill my family, you're like, no, you did. Definitely.
Yeah, no remorse, no sadness or anything like that. He's just concerned about making sure he's not charged, and that he can be, and he makes it clear, the only person I care about in this world is my stepdaughter, which was really strange because, again, he's accused of killing the maid, his wife, and his son. And he made the point to say the only person he cares about is his stepdaughter. Of course, later we realize why. It's because he's a pedophile who's having some type of relationship with her. But yeah, what I wrote down here is that that the big one that I took away was this whole idea that his, that Keanu Reeves is yelling that it's my job to protect you, and that this is now his role. It's to cover something up. It's to hide it, because what in this case, in this room, also this scene, Keanu Reeves almost makes it clear that he knows that he did do it, because he says, "Look, we know, like, Alex, why would your hand in your knee print be here like this and like this?" And basically, he's insinuating, "Look, we know you did it." And we also know that you, in the scene, that's when Keanu reveals, look, we know that you had an affair. We know that that's motive. Like, we know why now you wanted to do it. Give away your gun. Let me protect you. So let me now cover up your sins, cover up your crimes.
The way that the guy, it's funny how he's like, all right, how did this happen? How did you get the print over here? And he goes, like this. And he pulls out a gun and puts the gun on the ground, and then he like shows him, and then he's like, what are you doing with that? And he's like, oh, you mean this? And he's like, wait,
yeah, I know. Well, that's where he's holding it like this.
Yeah.
And it's like pointed right here at like Keanu Reeves's like chin. And I'm like,
yeah. Now just take all that away, and a lawyer, in terms of justice, a lawyer, he may think that he did it, but he never admits he did it, and he doesn't ask if he did it. He just has the evidence or whatever. And it is the lawyer's job to protect him in terms of, like, you can't get caught with this gun, because, for instance, like, the cops catch him with the gun, it's all over for him. So if he didn't do it, then he gives his gun to the lawyer, and the lawyer's going to take it. He'll give it back to him after the trial. By the way, he assumes right there that we're going to win the trial, and then he's going to plead innocent. I think in most of these cases, like, it's like 95% of cases, it's a plea bargain, right? But in this case, it's not, because this guy's at the top, right? This guy is one of those people at the top. And of course, Milton's firm is only going to deal with people that are murderers and arms dealers and guys like this. Right. So,
yep. Okay. So for this, go ahead. Yeah. I see if I can stop it on a little bit of that. So he'll get, so there he goes. He's like, well, he throws his freaking pistol out there, which nobody realized he had in his freaking waist. And he's like, look, I came to the crime scene. I was disheveled. I picked it up like this. So he throws the gun on the ground. He's like, look, I just picked it up. And everybody's like rolling their eyes like, dude, why would you? Then he claims that he put his hand into the pool of blood and then picked the gun up. No, he put his hand in the pool of blood and then picked the gun up with the same hand.
Yeah.
And that's why there's blood on it.
Why did you do that? I don't know. I was out of sorts. I just killed my wife and a housekeeper. I mean,
so he realizes, look, these people know I did it. If I'm going to get out of this, the best way I can do it is to go along with what they have to say.
Look at Trump's apartment, man. And they didn't change anything, by the way. Even the arrangement of the furniture is exactly the same. You can go to the articles and look at Trump's apartment. The seats are the same. The rug is the same. And they've got that tapestry in the background. Because he was like, look, I love the movies. You can film the movie here, okay? But you can't change the furniture.
Yeah, look at that painting in the back in front of those stairs.
That's a medieval tapestry for sure. Wow. Look at the gold doors.
Dude, gold doors, gold everywhere. The ceiling's gold when it shows you. Like when they zoom out, like the ceiling's freaking gold.
It's gold.
So
marble floors, yeah.
So this leads to now his mother, the Baptist Christian, finally comes. And now they're all walking into the apartment building where they all live, and she sees Al Pacino for the first time. So you see she doesn't want to make eye contact.
Yeah, checkerboard floor back there.
Checkerboard floor. Yeah. He's there with his two girlfriends. One we find out again is his daughter. We're not aware of that yet, but that's his daughter, and that's another girl that just came in from Paris. And the mother doesn't want to say anything. So he asked, like, is this your first time in New York? Of which Pacino knew that it wasn't, because he slept with her, and that's how Keanu Reeves, the character Kevin Lomax, came about. But she doesn't say anything. And so Kevin Lomax says, no, this is her first time to New York. And she doesn't say anything in the elevator except no. She says no to him. in regards to he says it must have not been easy raising him. Again, we don't know that this was his dad. And she goes, no. And that was it. And so,
right. Who'd have thought she'd been in New York, right? Mom, this is John Milton. Damn glad to meet you, right? And she, look, son, I never told you I was up here for the Giants Super Bowl game when the Buffalo Bills screwed up the winning field goal, 1991.
93?
Yeah, not 90. It was 91. Whitney
91.
Houston sang the national anthem, and I was just feeling kind of frisky. So I went to a restaurant and met this guy, John Milton. He's Al Pacino, and that's how you were born. And now somehow you're way older than that. That would be a better movie.
So they all get out, and it's time for them to get off the elevator. And what happens is they start making out. And so Pacino's like, hey, you want to run, the latest stuff on the Alexander Cullen case? You want to come up to my room and tell me about it? And he's like, oh, no, I can't. I'll do it tomorrow. And then these girls looking at him, they start making out.
Yeah.
And he's like, you sure? No, I can't. I got to go. And so he goes back inside the apartment, and then Mary Ann's yelling at him and saying, now I know what you do at those late nights at the office, which isn't untrue. It's false in the sense that at this point he hadn't explicitly done anything with those girls, but it is true that these late night at works really aren't late nights, which we'll see in the next scene where they like go to the Madison Square Garden. They're like going to a Knicks game, and they got girls and everything that they could want.
Yeah. Ringside seats. By the way, we're gonna meet Don King there.
Yeah.
Only in Japan, folks. Only in Japan. I love Pacino. He's like, we're gonna go. We got ringside.
And so his mother, yeah. It is funny the people who like associate with the Pacino character.
Yeah.
Like you said, the senator and
Don King,
promoting all the fights and certainly the ways he's made his money are a little bit nefarious. But so next scene, we see Kevin Lomax get ready to go to work. He's like, oh, crap, because there's a public article now out about Alex Cullen that he's got to go take care of. Yeah. And his mother's trying to tell him, look, I got to leave. This city's not good. What you're involved isn't good. I got to get out of here. And he's like, well, just stay till I get back. And she says, look, Mary Ann's not well. You need to take care of Mary Ann. And he's like, well, then you stay here and you do that. I'm busy. I got to go to work. And that's basically then how this ends, which we realize that she leaves. She does not stay. And this is the day that, again, he stays out till super late in the morning because this is the night he goes to the Madison Square Garden. So this is in the morning. They all wake up, and then he's going to be gone the entirety of the rest of the day. And so he's got to leave, yada, yada, yada. Now,
behold, I send you out as sheep amongst the wolves, right? So she quotes Matthew. And then he rebukes her for that.
Right. Yeah, I don't have time for all that, the Bible stuff. And so he leaves, and now he's looking at the crime scenes of the guy he's defending. He's looking literally look, he shot his boy. Let's move on. I don't want to show too much of that. But he's defending this guy, and he's making sure that he can get through this case. Mm-hmm. And now he's working late with this guy who's actually shredding papers.
Yes,
so
not a good time.
He's got an entire operation there where they're like shredding evidence and getting rid of papers, and he's telling them where to throw the trash out. Make sure you put this at a different building and not let it all out here. So he's clearly destroying evidence to that way another client can't be incriminated on something else. We're not sure what case he's working on.
Yeah, if you're working at a law firm or really anywhere, and you walk into a room at night and there's a guy that looks like this, and he's like shrouded in shadows, and there's like a million people in there, and he tells them not to stop working, and they're shredding documents, it's probably not a legitimate operation.
Exactly. And so he's getting all these people to get rid of these documents, and he's like, oh, I thought I was the only one here. And he's like, oh no, well, we actually thought we were the only one here. And then he tells him, look, just make no comment about what you just saw. Like, yeah, no problem. And so now they all go. Now again, Al Pacino, he comes out. He's like, "Hey, we got tickets to Madison Square Garden. So let's go." And so then they're off. And that's what I thought funny is like this scene's actually really interesting. Is that I was thinking, well, why the hell are they on the subway? If you're that wealthy and you have like they're taking a limo to Madison Square Garden, they're getting VIP. Like he's got floor seats to the game.
Yeah,
not be on a subway.
Yeah, not necessarily though, because the mayors and New Yorkers often make a point of doing this to show that like, oh, I ride the subway every day, and a lot of I'm sure some of them do because it like shows that you're supposedly in touch with the people. He's doing this because he takes the subterranean hell route wherever he goes. He lives underground, right? He lives in hell. So he's always taking the subway. And also this is a chance for him to come across more people that he can lie to, con and deceive and like what he's about to do with these guys. Somebody made a point earlier of saying like that the honest man never you can't con an honest man. Only the confidence man always picks the praise on the deceitful quality of the mark, which is, I mean, that's in Confidence Man, Herman Melville. And it's also the same thing goes with intelligence and talking about hypnosis. That the good or the righteous person can't be hypnotized, right? Or like play into the tricks of the devil. It's only the weak-minded or the whatever. And that's exactly what happens in this scene. This scene's great because should I set up this scene? What happens here?
Sure, go ahead.
So they're on the way to Madison Square Garden. They're going to take the subway. Also, they're taking the subway because it'd be quick. It would be quicker to take the subway from where they were straight up the line to Grand Central and Madison Square Garden. It's right there. You get off the subway and you're right there in the place. And any other place, they would take a helicopter wherever they went, but a limo would get stuck in traffic. And so they're taking the subway, and Al Pacino is looking at these two, Puerto Ricano or Dominican fellas on the train. And the guy says,
see if I can get a clip of that.
He goes, hey, yo, excuse me. You want to tell me what the fuck you're looking at, right? Excuse my bad bad impression. And he says, he speaks to him in Spanish, and he says, Mariana tu esposa, right? Is your wife, Mariana, is in your house. And he says to him in Spanish, the minute that you left, she went upstairs with the upstairs neighbor, and they are fumar crack. Right now, they're rolling a jumbo. They're smoking. They split a jumbo. It's like they're smoking weed and crack together. And he's gonna do things to her culo. And if you leave right now, you might have time to find them. Clearly, meaning that he wants him to find him so that he can kill his wife and the guy upstairs. Right. Not anything to do with his righteousness, like, oh, you're cheating on your wife. And the guy says, you ain't right, man. And he says, I am right. I'm right about a lot. And if you go there right now, you're going to find her. Right. So the guy, and he had a box cutter. So he was about to cut him. And Keanu Reeves is like, man, get down. He tries to jump on Al Pacino. And then he says, invigorating, isn't it? So he's invigorated by, slumming it, going down to the depths, going into hell and, dealing with the spiciness in life. And then what happens after this? Instead of a fight here, they go up, they ascend, they go to Madison Square Garden, and they go watch a fight, which of course, I'm sure he controls.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't the Knicks. It was a fight. It's Roy
Jones Jr.
Yeah.
Who's knocking somebody out. They had to get him because I think Tyson was already locked up at this point. They should have been great to get Tyson. Tyson not a fan of Don King, obviously. And Don King comes down and he says, I'd like you to meet somebody. Don King comes down and says, only in Japan. Only in Japan. They meet Don King, who through whatever is in league with John Milton. But of course, the reason for doing that, by the way, the motive, this is my favorite scene. The motive for doing that was that Keanu Reeves was talking to Eddie Barzoon, and Eddie Barzoon said, I called John, but he hasn't returned my calls. Did you get my message? And he says, yeah, beautiful writing. In other words, he's blowing him off. That's going to lead to Eddie Barzoon thinking that Keanu Reeves is taking over his job. He's not taking over his job, but he's been written in the charter. And this is because John Milton knows that Barzoon is being investigated by the Justice Department. because the firm is involved with a global everything you could possibly be involved with, right? It's also interesting that like the intelligence, you know, when you think of these intelligence figures like Dulles and then Prescott Bush in terms of politics, they're all lawyers. They all work at New York law firms like this. And so of course he would be tied in with this. But he says, let's go to the fight because they're going to go to another fight instead of staying and fighting with Eddie Barzoon, because there is no real fight. But instead of dealing with him, and he again appeals to his kind of his vanity, his sense of flash, I guess, by saying, hey, courtside. He appears out of nowhere. He's like, ringside tickets, right? And then they go to this fight here.
Right. Here's the scene of Don King, as you're mentioning. And so they're there for the fight, and then they go to the after party, which is like,
this is great. This is a great scene. So they go to the after party and they're listening to flamenco, and Tomatito is there playing guitar, famous flamenco guitarist. I've seen him in Spain. I saw a bunch of flamenco. I went to Spain for a month, and when I was in Sevilla or in Barcelona, maybe I don't remember where, but I saw flamenco throughout, and I saw him. And flamenco in real life, especially in Spain, is like, this does a really good job of it. It's exactly like this. It's amazing. And that's also a famous guy, the guy singing. I sent a message to our friend Chase, and I said, I said him, have you ever heard of this guy? Because Chase plays gypsy jazz. And he said, he sent me back saying, man, who in the world is this Tomatito? So they're doing their flamenco. She's doing her flamenco dance. And then, of course, this is Gitano Guitarra, right? This is like gypsy music. So the gypsy, I'm actually, my next shameless plug here. My next analysis is on F. Paul Wilson's The Keep, which is about World War II Romania, and there's a being there. And anyway, Synchro, one of the sentences that I read right after I sent him that, dealt with gypsy music. So the gypsies are into tarot and magic, and so of course they're going to be another aspect of where Satan goes to play, right? Just like he was dealing with the voodoo guy at the beginning. Now he's going to the gypsy bar, and he's going to hang out with them. While he's there, he's got this waistcoat on and this shirt. He looks like a magician, like some sort of magician, and he's smoking his cigarette, and a girl goes under the table. He laughs demonically. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves is in the background, in the back, talking to his wife, telling her.
Yeah, let me skip forward. I was going to say, did you notice that there was a mirror behind them?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna make a play on that because you were talking about mirrors. That you find them throughout the scenes, and this is another one in which they're watching the dancers perform in front of a mirror.
Right.
And so now he's behind on a payphone, basically in an argument with Marianne because she's going crazy. His mother has left. She went back home. She can only stand one day there in New York, and it's got to be late at night. He told her he was going to be home. You know, he told his mom he was going to be home.
Yeah.
She's not there. And, you know, he's certainly at a place that she wouldn't appreciate.
Right. Yes. I mean, even her name, right? I mean, the Mary Ann. So they're Mary. She wants to be a mother. Mary. And is Anne the mother of Mary? Who's Saint Anne? Is it the mother of Mary?
Well, Anna, Joachim and Anna is the parents of Mary.
Okay, so she's, you know, so there's
she's representing the motherly, like traditional feminine archetype,
right?
And how it gets distorted through all this whole thing. So it ends up killing himself, which that's why I said by the time I finished this movie, I was like, wow, this goes perfect with the stream I want to do on the erasure of women.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happened. She offs herself because she can't stand this inverted environment. So, yeah. Anyways, they get in an argument, and he's looking at these dress. You know, one of the dancers. She's getting dressed, and you can see that Keanu is clearly drank the Kool-Aid in regards to apparently open to infidelity, open to the temptations that come with John Milton.
A scarlet woman with her back to us, with her hair up, looking in the mirror, and we can't see her face.
Yep. Great point.
She's Carmen.
And so now we move to the scene where it's like all these people. It seems like you got mobsters, you got John Milton, you got some dude over here. There's women who are all over the place. And like this European, it seems like the Russian chick that John Milton's with, he like whispers in her ear. She starts giving him fellatio right under the table right there. So you see, this is the kind of nightlife that they're all embroiled in.
At a long altar-like table. John, Gary Busey or somebody's over there.
Yeah, I couldn't tell who that was.
Yeah.
Anyways, she starts hearing sounds, and she has this hallucination where she like wakes up from a dream, but she's not fully woken up, and she hears this noise, and then she goes into this room, and she sees the baby, and all she wants is a baby. She's asking the baby, "Where's your mom? Where's your mom?" And then the baby has her ovaries in his hand. And she's freaked out because she feels like what she just realized in the dream is that when she went to the doctor, which she explained, she went to the doctor and they told her that she had to have some ovarian checkup or something. Now she thinks that they put her out and they took her ovaries so she can't have a baby.
Yeah, that scene is the most. That is a horrible scene. This cherubic child, and it's clearly SRA stuff, right? That's clearly SRA. There's a child in there playing with body parts. Because, like you said, it represents her ovaries. She's never, and it's a hallucination, but something that. How do we know? I mean, how do you know it's a hallucination? She's being gaslit throughout the thing, but nevertheless, it's a.
That's the thing. Yeah, you can't tell if what she's hallucinating is real or not, but in a way, you assume that she's like privy to what's actually going on, but she looks crazy when she's doing it.
SRA is Satanic Ritual, ABUSE. Somebody said they wouldn't watch this movie. It's demonic. Yeah, but it has a good ending, though.
Yeah, it has a Christian theme through the whole movie, really.
Yeah.
And so, so now he thinks she's crazy, and she keeps saying, "You're going to leave me. You're going to leave me. They took my ovaries." He clearly doesn't believe her. And now he's confronting Alex Cullen about he needs to talk to him about something. He's got to get something worked out. And you see that he's like really concerned with the little girl that comes out, and she's walking away. See if I can get it right there. And so instead of hearing what he has to defend his case, Alex Cullen is very, he's upset that whoever is taking this girl away must be a previous wife, or how'd that work? His stepdaughter? But I think he killed his current daughter. So he killed this daughter's mother, and she's from a different husband.
So it's either CPS, but it's not going to be CPS because these people are. It's going to be some guardian.
Well, it's like it's like he clearly knows this woman. She's dressed very nice. They're getting into like a luxury limousine,
right?
But he said, "I thought I had 15 more minutes." And she said, "You'll have to see her next week."
They were at some psychiatrist's office or something because there was some institute plaque on the wall. And then he walks out into the snow, and this is the point where Keanu Reeves confronts him and says, "Like, what about the other woman?" And then is that where he admits? Or he says, "No, I couldn't have been there because I was with the other woman, my secretary at the time."
Well, that's the case they come up with. So they get the woman to lie. That's his secretary to say that they're having an affair. That's where he's like, question her, like, is he circumcised or is he not? Well, she needs to make a declarative decision on that. And she's like, doesn't know what to say because she's in on it and sort of helping cover up the murder. Right. I assume that they probably paid her pretty nicely. Yeah. So anyways, that goes there. This is a really interesting scene that you highlighted earlier where Al Pacino, Satan, tells Keanu Reeves that, look, your wife's sick. You need to go take care of your wife, man. You know, unfortunately, we'll pull you off. You'll get another case. And he is so concerned that he won't get the case. I think he says something like, what I'm more concerned about is if you take me off and she gets better, I'm going to hate her forever. Or he's going to hold it against her. And you see Al Pacino kind of smile. And you see also that the ripple effects of like you capitulating in this has ripple effects for the people around you. Clearly, Marianne is representative of the fact that as Kevin Lomack goes deeper and deeper into this concentric circles of hell, to use a Inferno reference.
Yeah.
That it has a ripple effect on those around you. In a way, his refusal to help his wife allows Satan then to rape her, which happens later. So he gets, in a way, it's like it always gets back to like masculinity, and masculinity like always has to protect those that are more vulnerable, women and children. And because he's more concerned with his own vanity than helping his wife, Satan is allowed to go rape his wife.
Yeah, this is like, you know, to take the inverse, it's like when bad things happen and people say, why do they happen? And because you can't see the ripple effects, who knows the ways of God to men, right? I mean, you don't know if this is for a reason somewhere else. We can't know. But here we're being presented with this case where the bad thing happens because Satan is puppet mastering the other things that happen in ripple effects. And like he says later in the movie, like, I can't make people do things. I set it up so.
Right.
So
I set the table, they make the choices. So
in the terms of the situation, we go, oh, he's a nice guy because he cares about him going home to his wife. But he's only this is equivocation. Like he's lying by omission because he's the one that is making his wife crazy in the first place. Right. And he's trying to get him to make another choice here. So when he makes the choice, then he's like full on, because now it's like at a point where it's your wife or us. Right. All the rest was like your career. But now it's like your wife is literally going crazy and he's Satan and he's telling him so. He's blatantly telling him that's the case. And he still decides to choose the opposite.
Still chooses the opposite.
Yeah. And he says, look, you know, we all lose sometime. You don't think I've ever lost? Because he is a loser.
He is a loser. Yeah. Satan's the ultimate loser.
He got this guy got kicked out. Right. You got kicked out of heaven. You're in hell and you want to be there and you want to rule there. And you know, you sick man. Right.
That's what exactly the answer he was hoping for. He's always testing Kevin. That's exactly it. Okay. So now we move from this scene. Kevin has basically made his choice right before he's like, I got to go to trial, because they're getting ready to go to trial.
Right.
And he doesn't want to give up this case. He thinks he's totally got it in the bag. And so now next we're in the court case. And so we see the prosecutor here making a clear, statement about how atrocious this murder case is. And then he gets up and makes a case basically that all you have to do is, that you may hate this guy. You may think he's an idiot. You may think he's an egotistical bastard. Well, I'm going to tell you things that are going to make you hate him even worse. But he's not a murderer. And I'm going to show you that you can, he's not a good person, but he didn't murder his family. Because what he's going to do, the way he's going to get him out of the case, is to get the guy's secretary to agree or pay her off, who he's having a relationship with. So this is who he's having an affair with already.
Yeah.
But now they're going to come up with a lie and say that they were together at the time of the murder, so that his family was murdered, so that he can't then be found guilty of the murder. Like, I have an alibi of a woman here that, I was having an affair on my wife, but because also the affair happened while they were killed, it couldn't be me, and it couldn't be because of the prenuptial agreement that she was going to get half my money, because this was the first time we had an affair,
Right.
So this is like the perfect omission of guilt, that he's guilty. Yeah, I'm guilty for the adultery. I'm guilty, but I didn't kill her because I was doing it during the murder, which isn't the case. But this is how he's going to get him out.
Which is, on the one hand, it's like, oh, hot take, right? The lawyer does the thing that they do in every movie, which is to say, this guy's a real scumbag, right? This guy's a POS in every situation, but he didn't murder his wife. When in actuality, I guess on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but you're speaking to character and motive, and the guy's character is clearly, he would do anything at any time to advance, himself and whatever he is. So what would put murder beyond this, right?
Right.
So it's kind of cheap in the movie, but it works. And of course, Craig T. Nelson's like, what are you doing? What are you saying I'm a jerk for? Right. And he's like, and you're like, and he's been in like a million scenes with him. Right. And now he's like, get your hands off me. Right. I don't like your tone. I'm telling him that you're a scumbag murderer because I'm going to prove you're not a murderer.
Yeah.
How about that? And Craig T. Nelson's like, wow, that's really something. Will you be my best friend now?
Yeah. So that's basically what happens in these next couple scenes. So he lays out that this guy's a terrible person. I'm not going to tell you anything that's going to make you like him anymore. And then they're in the back room like, well, I can't believe you'd say that. And that's where that little face. Oh, I wish I could. There it is. That's like the face once he's like, no, I'm gonna. You get it now? I'm gonna tell him that you were sleeping with the woman during the murder. Do you get it now? And he's like, oh,
yeah. He goes,
tell me that at the beginning.
He walks in like this, and then he goes, oh, I get it. Oh, you're on my level. You mean you're as scummy as I am?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're buddies. All right.
And so again, Kevin's crossing the barriers. He's making his nest.
Yeah,
this is an interesting scenario where oh boy comes and confronts him because he thinks he's trying to take his job when Kevin actually has Keanu Reeves here. He has no idea that his name's already been etched into what do they call it?
The charter.
The charter.
Yeah. So he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm just buying some Florida oranges here at the bodega. How are you doing, Mr. Jogger? Who's, by the way, never jogged in his life. Look at him. Right. So he comes up, hey, how the hell did you get your name in the firm charter? It looks like it's been there for years. How are you a partner? Well, we know he's already living in the apartments of the partners, but how he got himself into the charter? Well, because Satan rewrote the charter and the signatures. Right. So now he's one of them. And that means he's being pushed out. And then, of course, Jeffrey Jones says, hey, remember that guy that's investigating me at the Justice Department? Maybe I'll just pick up the phone. Right. And of course, Keanu Reeves pushes him off and says, I don't think I like your tone. Yeah. And he says, bullshit. Right. And then he runs off in his Lecoq Sportif tracksuit there. And he's running. And of course, later on when he sees Pacino, he says, yeah, he said this to me. And Pacino goes, was he drunk?
Yeah.
And he says, no, he was running. It was really weird. So he's going to take the route around wherever it is that he runs. It's the same iconic route they do in New York. They do that in the Marathon Man. That's where Dustin Hoffman's running, and he gets confronted. He's going to get confronted by the demons right there. So I guess he's going around Central Park, around the lake or something.
And I took it also because he's being investigated, like the anxiety, right? The anxiety from all the guilt, all the sins, everything he's contributed to. Again, getting rid of the papers.
Yeah.
That again, I would imagine if that was happening to me, it would be hard to just sit and allow life to just transpire. Like you would be fidgety. And so like going and running when you're an unhealthy person, like she was like, is he drunk? No, he's not even drinking. He's just like running in a tracksuit.
He's also running away.
Yeah. Running away from it.
And he's running the wrong way, by the way.
That's what I was going to get to I was going to skip through there. Yeah. So the next scene is now it's like this video of the Eddie running away, but it's all over on top of the audio of Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves having this conversation.
That's right.
And so he tells him like, was he drunk? And he's like, no, he was just running. And he's telling him about, again, this is where it gets into selling the future, and that Eddie is just indicative of every man that's going to be in the 21st century. That Eddie, again, he's already sold his future. He's already living in a massive cathedral of his own ego. He's already connected to every impulsive pleasure he could have. He already is his own God. He already lives in his own fantasy. And he's all alone. And there's going to be nobody there to help him.
I nursed this guy through 2 divorces, a cocaine rehab, and alcoholism. All right. I tell you, I don't know what to do with this guy. Right? He's in his Satan pajamas, lounging at home where there's no bed. Just like Matthew McConaughey in True Romance and True Detective. There's no bed because he's Satan, and Satan never sleeps. And he's narrating him running because it's like he's narrating the events of his life, right? And we see the demons following him.
Right. And people are all running in the opposite direction. They say to him during this scene, you're running in the wrong direction. He goes, oh, shut up.
Yeah.
Get out of my way.
Yeah. Oh, he bumps into the guy and he goes, "Excuse me," and then he turns around and he goes, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
That's really weird. Squeeze me.
And so he's going on there during this point. It's this whole thing about selling the future, and that he ends it right at the point here where Eddie is like seeing these demons chasing him.
Yeah.
And right here where he's getting ready to get beat by the homeless man. Right here. So he says that again, like Eddie is every man in the 21st century, and that by the time they get all this stuff, right, hooked up, fiber optic, get all the impulses, live in their fantasy, be their own God, they're going to be all alone and nobody's going to be there to help them. And that's exactly then what happens here. Nobody is there to help him. And then he gets beat by two homeless guys, which are also demons, to get his watch and money. And so that's what this scene is here. So now he's dead.
The two
and
twins.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if the DA gets him or the enterprise of evil itself eventually catches up with it.
Yeah, they've the Justice Department now has no snitch, right? They've lost their contact and their witness. So he's not going to testify about all their stuff. And also, I think it's interesting because what Pacino says in that monologue, because he makes it out, he says, God rolls the dice, right? And he says that basically like what you were just saying, and that a guy like Eddie is a slave to his passions to such an extent that he goes beyond anything acceptable and decadent and degenerate and straight to hellish activity where nothing can satisfy his lust, right? Until the end when he has nobody to help him. Now, there's nobody to help him because of who he is like in life, but Pacino makes it out like God is not there to help him when that's not the case, right? It's like he lies by him. Again, it's like this limited hangout thing where he's trying to make this case and present this argument like he's at trial with Keanu Reeves to make, push him to the point of giving up on God. Right. To say that, oh, there's no hope in anything. Well, what he's saying is true in the sense that the people who do this and make, are gods unto themselves have no hope in the sense that they want to be there. But the sense that he has no hope, well, he could ask God for help, right? But he doesn't because he's been serving Satan this whole time and he knows he's not going to. So it's kind of a slightly double-edged there. And yeah, like you said, they assassinate him or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. However you interpret it, his dealings caught up with him.
Yeah. Give me that Casio. What? You're not going to get this Casio, right?
Well, I love this watch. There you go. Oh man, I missed it.
They have mouths. They have mouths, grinning mouths in their cheeks.
I can't do it. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to catch it. Anyway, so he's killed, and his wife is absolutely going crazy. Here he's trying to get the woman that Alex Cullen, the guy who killed his family, he's trying to get the woman he's having an affair with to be complicit in the cover-up and agree that basically she was having an affair with him while the murder happened. They were not, but she's willing to engage in it because she loves him. And so he's like testing her and basically pushing her buttons as if the prosecuting attorney would during the trial. And ultimately she fails. And so he tells Pacino, look, she's not ready. I can't put her on trial. And what he ends up doing is he does put her on trial right at the end because he makes the decision that he's going to go ahead and go along with it.
She also has short hair, like you were saying. She's got, you can see her neck. That's the girl from Maximum Overdrive with Emilio Estevez.
See, and then you see his sister there. They always have their hair up. So she has long hair, but it's always up. And this is now she's upset because Eddie Barzoon was killed in the park. And he already kind of knows that something was ready to go down.
Right.
So
no
he's not
tears.
as upset. Everybody's crying.
Without tears. No tears.
Yeah, he didn't. Now him and Pacino are on the subway having a chat. And he's like, I can't put her on trial. And he's like, well, you're going to have to make a decision. And then the next scene is they're at trial. oh no, he makes the point. Well, now it's the pressure, because at the beginning when they're walking on the rooftop with the pools, he makes a point that what he's interested in is how people respond to pressure, the decisions they make under pressure.
Right.
And so now he has pressure. You have a woman who's not ready for trial. What are you going to do? Are you still going to win the case? You got to go to trial right now. And so he does do it, and he does win the case. And so for Kevin Lomax, he stood up to the pressure, but he also sold his soul in the process. And so now they go to trial. Now he does his whole thing. This is now you see that they won. He's shaking his hand. He's elated.
Yes.
You see Satan always behind them, walking behind them. Right.
That's
He's
right.
behind the whole thing.
The juice is loose. Yeah. So
now
OJ's free.
This is a scene in which his wife, he goes home, and the bellboy or the guy there at the hotel says, "Oh, she's on the loose. She just came down. You know, Mrs. Lomax walked down the street. She's at the church." And he's like, "At the church?" And so now he goes, she's inside this church here, and this is the scene after. So while they were at trial, while Kevin Lomax committed this ultimate atrocity of, again, getting this murderer off trial, Satan, Al Pacino, somehow raped his wife.
Right. They go to the Church of the Heavenly Rest. That's an Episcopal church. That's an Episcopal flag outside. Goes inside in swaddling clothes.
Yeah, naked and wrapped in a blanket.
Yeah.
And she tries to tell him what happened, that she's ashamed, that she was so lonely that she almost wanted him to do it. And he's like really confused. He's like, no, he was with me the whole time. You're lying. You're crazy. And that's when she like takes off the blanket and stands up, and you can see her scratches. We're not going to look at that. So then he takes her and puts her in the hospital, and she can no longer look at a mirror. So again, this is where it plays into the whole mirrors throughout the movie. Mirrors. And then she can no longer look at a mirror because she can't stand who she's become by being in vicinity or around the demonic happenings throughout the film. And so now she's institutionalized. She's chained to the bed. She's strapped down. And he's like telling her everything's going to be okay. Meanwhile, we see this really elaborate Catholic church where all the demonic people from the law firm are there for Eddie Barzoon's body. And they're just, they're acting like everything's great. And you see the guy who just got off trial come in.
You see Geddes. You see the guy from the beginning.
Oh, he's there?
Yeah, he's there. It's somebody else's face, but he sees his face, and he doesn't have glasses on.
That's when he sees him petting his stepdaughter, right? And so it connects his pedophilia with Geddes from the original case.
Okay.
So like that's right here. So
there
right there. Yeah. Right. So Alex Cullen turns into Geddes because he sees him rubbing like really sexually his quote unquote stepdaughter. So he comes to the funeral with just him and his stepdaughter, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you and your daughter." Meanwhile, once they sit down, he's like using his thumb to like caress her back, and you can see her kind of move into it.
Her back, her back and her shoulders, the front lines of her mystique, as Milton said earlier, with her hair up. And so he then sees and connects that the guy he just got off the murder trial is not just an adulterer, not just a murderer, but he's also a pedophile with his own stepdaughter, who now he is her only care because her parents are dead. Again, I don't know how that whole thing works. I assume she's the daughter of the woman he just killed. Yeah, this guy's a real jerk.
And so now she's in a terrible situation. He connects that, and he like can't stand it, so he's got to leave immediately. Of which we see Pacino standing in the back, and he puts his finger into the holy water, which then like it starts to simmer and like evaporate because he is on fire, if you will.
Right.
And so this leads to the DA. So this is now the DA investigating Eddie Barzoon. And he's telling him, hey, Eddie gave us your name on a few things. You want to help us out? We're going after John Milton. We're trying to take down the whole law firm. And he won't help him. He won't tell him the truth about it. He won't reveal the evils. He won't, participate in the revelation of truth. So this guy, go ahead.
It's not to say, I mean, one thing this movie presents is that, the prosecutors are the good guys and the DA is the good guy, which is obviously not the case. The whole thing is controlled, right?
Right.
So,
yes, from a real perspective, absolutely.
Right.
The movie does kind of use that dichotomy and that dialectic. It plays off of it. But yeah, in real life, it's not so clear. So anyways, eventually this dude gets ran over in the street.
Really like a lame way to go. Also, he's like, I'm just going to walk across the New York City street. And the guy's going like way too fast for where the street is. Of course, car wrecks are the MO of certain people. So makes sense that he would be killed that way. Then we cut to the hospital scene where he walks in. The mother's there again, but also so is the demon woman.
Right. And so what we see is one of the secretaries from the law firms is there, who is a demon.
And the orange is on the wall over there on the poster. So I guess that's Florida. And then on the other side, there's like some sort of picture of like the Met or something. And it's like an evolutionary poster, there's like, so there's something behind that looked like a Pietà behind her. And then on the other side, there's like right there. So the New American Wing of like, the Met or something. And it looks like almost like is that some sort of creature crawling out of the pond scum muck right there? Like a Florida gator or like a dragon, some sort of drag. Maybe it's just rocks.
Sure. I can't tell if that's an animal or if that's just like debris.
Well, whatever it is, they're also in nature and there aren't any people. So maybe that's where she needs to go back to, right? Instead of in New York with all these people. I mean, they put that there for a reason. So I don't know why.
Right. So anyways, this scene's pretty important because we see that Marianne has gone full crazy. Her psyche has broken. She is now, you see that the mother of Keanu Reeves does have a heart, and she could sense that Mary was in danger, and she came from Florida because she couldn't get a hold of anybody. And so she came and she eventually found her, and now she's at the hospital, and she was reading her the Bible when he walked in. She has something that she wants to tell him, which is that, Al Pacino is his dad. But you see the secretary woman, she always stands right behind her, and eventually she'll like comb her hair and pull her hair back and all this different stuff. So in this scene, we have he's struggling with his wife. Then he goes in the hallway and he's really upset because his mother tries to reveal the truth about her relationship with Al Pacino.
There's the psychiatric green right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from earlier when she was painting the house. There you go. See, I knew it was psychiatric, you guys. They're in the they're at Shady Acres, where they were in the last analysis that we did. Right. They're at Shady Acres, Bellevue, where she's clearly dissociated and not there.
Right.
Or she's got that glazed look on her eyes. She's just totally desolate.
So, she tries to reveal the thing. He doesn't want to hear it. He refuses to listen. He tries to go back to deal with Mary. Meanwhile, the woman is like combing her hair, and she's like and she's trying to get her to look at the mirror. Why does the demon want her to look at the mirror? Because she doesn't want to see what she's become, but the demon is trying to force her to see what she's become. And she doesn't want to see it.
Look at that demonic smile behind her, too. Look at that woman. Ugh. Go on. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. She's trying to show her sin. Oh, nasty face. Look at that face. Demon face in the mirror. Ugh.
And so Marianne freaks out, throws the mirror in the woman's face, and she's attacking me. She's attacking me. And so she locks the door to prevent her from coming back in, but to prevent anybody from coming in, And then she starts to go play with the glass, of which everybody knows what's getting ready to happen. She's getting ready to kill herself to get away from all the demonic insanity. And so Keanu Reeves is doing everything he can to break the window, to open the door. He got to get through. She's got a chair pinned up against the doorknob in the door frame, so you can't open the door. And so he's doing everything he can. She takes her own life, unfortunately. We're gonna not show that.
Yeah, whenever characters in movies or literature, mutilate or hurt themselves or kill themselves with mirror shards or glass, it's always because it's it's the image of the person, the mirrors throughout. Her psyche's been fractured because she's been put through as much as SRA in a movie is like this movie has it. She's been RAPED by the devil.
Yep.
They had the cherubic child with her ovaries. She's been mutilated. She talked about how she went to the doctor and they told her that her ovaries didn't work or they removed them. Her husband doesn't believe her. There are demons everywhere. They're gaslighting her the whole time. They've taken away everything she has. She even wrapped herself in swaddling clothes and went to the church and, stood there naked in front of God asking for help. And her husband's not going to help. So they've driven her to this. And so when they kill themselves with a mirror, like in a movie, like in Black Swan or any number of movies or Red Dragon, it's because they're trying to reunite with their fractured psyche, like find out who they are, find their way out of the maze. And that's her way out, which is unfortunate. Right. And like you said at the beginning, this is where Keanu Reeves like really wakes up. And it takes this to wake him up and break him to go back to himself. Not quite yet, but this is the defining moment.
Yeah.
This is great acting. Yes, this is great acting by both of them. It's really underrated. I mean, Keanu Reeves is great. Yes, his accent, is Nick Cage, Con Air level Southern lawyer, but his acting in this is really good. He's consistent.
Right. Yeah, he did a really good job in this in this part. I mean, really, I think he did a good job in the whole movie.
Yeah.
I thought Al Pacino did a good job. I thought it was really good acting all around the movie. I didn't see anything that was too much or too obnoxious. But anyways, yeah, he comes to himself. And now he's got his bag and he's getting ready to take it back to daddy.
Yeah.
And so now he goes up to his mom. He's like, finish the story. Because now he suspects that maybe there's some type of connection here. Yeah. And she tells him like that she was just a young Christian girl. She was a waitress in a bar in New York. There's a man who showed a lot of interest into her. Eventually, she kept talking with him. Eventually, again, they slept with each other. She got pregnant and she fled and never came back again. And she said, I recognized his face as soon as I saw him.
Right. And that man was Al Pacino.
Yeah. And so here we see the secretary outside waiting for him. And she's like, oh, where are you going? And he goes, I'm going to see John. And she goes, oh, well, I'm sure he's waiting for you.
Yeah, like his wife just like decapitated herself, right? And you're going to say, hey, where are you going? Everything's fine. And then he goes out onto the empty street here, which is interesting. This is like Vanilla Sky or, Karanka 2020 territory, like with no one on the streets. The streets are empty. He's the last man. He's God's lonely man, right? He's the last man, and he's headed downtown to the lair.
And now he's there. He's at the apartment. And this is actually, I think this is probably the best full like scene of the movie is the conversation they have now at this point.
Yes.
And so he's now confronting Al Pacino and he's like, Kevin, I have been watching you. I've been watching you for a long time. And he's like, yeah, I know who you are. Basically, I'm your dad. You're my dad. Well, I'm more than that, bub. And
oh, you brought a gun? Ooh, right. Hey, he gets shot. That I guess that's Cullen's gun, right?
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So, hey, right, standing in front of ex nihilo there. Somebody said the Constantine origin story is whack. Constantine's a good movie with Keanu Reeves. I'm taking issue with that because my friend Matt Ryan plays Constantine in the show Constantine, the origin story of Constantine. My friend from drama school.
Wow. So he's upset with him. He shoots him, and that really doesn't do much because you can't kill Satan. And so now Pacino starts laying out and basically explaining in the scene, you know, how free will works. So this whole scene is basically him talking about free will until his half sister steps in, and then he explains to him the plan and what he needs him to do now. And so you see the flames everywhere, the fire, the free will, all this different stuff. And then eventually old girl should be coming in here. Let's see if we can find her somewhere. There she is. Oh, and now her hair's down. So now she has curly long hair like Marianne did in the beginning, which was about, what did Marianne want? She wanted a baby. Now his half sister and his dad want them to conceive of a baby who's going to be, quote unquote, the Antichrist.
Right.
And so again, that's where the hair thing really plays, you know, an important symbolic role in the film. And so now he explains that basically the goal is for them to mate. They can have now a grandson. He needs a grandson who's going to be the Antichrist. And now they can basically rule the world through this this enterprise that they've built, this law firm. And yeah, so what do you want to say about this?
That, you know, of course, the climax of the movie is in the false heaven at the top floor of the law firm, overlooking the, you know, what Satan's going to offer. And this is almost like a mimicry of like an OTO ceremony or something. Like this is Al Crowley.
Yeah.
There's a Gnostic Masonic checkerboard floor. There's an altar. He literally refers to the table as an altar.
See if I can find that real quick.
There are flames. There's flames behind him. He's in the garb of like some sort of master of ceremonies. Like, and he's got, you know, he's got his collar undone. He's got these wide, he's like vampirical almost. And he's got some sort of medallion on. I can't see what his necklace is. Some sort of medallion.
Yeah. Well, it's the only scene in which Satan is presented as like unkept.
Well, there was a scene where he showed up. Hey, I'm Al Pacino. I'm in my pajamas. Right. But that's because, remember when he first got there and he was telling him about Barzoon and he was running when Pacino was narrating, he was in pajamas, but
this one, look, his hair, he looks unkept. He looks,
he does. And in that scene also, by the way, he said earlier when he introduced the apartment, he said, where does he sleep? Where does he, you know what? And then Pacino says, everywhere. Right. And right here, when they finally bring out the Scarlet Woman and they're about to do the sex magic ceremony on the altar, he says, he makes a Latin invocation and he says, the virtue of the devil is in his loins.
Yeah.
Right. So it's sex magic. And then the ex nihilo moving statue behind them turns into figures of lust. Right. And also, of course, it's going to be Satan's son and daughter in an INCEST ritual, making the Antichrist. And he also, this is very much like Dante and Miltonian Faustus territory, where he says, you know, your son will sit at the head of every table. He'll be the Antichrist in charge of all of these things. And we have our finger in every pie and we're doing bio, you know, things and all of that stuff. Arms trafficking, drug trafficking from South America, like every big thing they're involved with.
Right.
Also, like she takes the drink, like they offer, I think he like has a goblet of wine. There's a black globe behind them. Look at the artwork on the wall. That's like Al Crowley artwork on the wall. That painting, that was like a blood painting from the Cefalù Abbey in Sicily. There's a weird,
and they cleared out his desk as like an altar to perform the sex ritual on.
Yes, there's an octagon. The way that little thing in the centerpiece of that it's not a circle like a magic circle. It's like an octagon, like an inverted stained glass window that they're going to dance on. Everything's black drapes. So, yeah. And then he's going to sing the Sinatra song. So he's going to lull them into this, like pre-boomer sex ritual.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what happens. And you think Keanu's going to go along with it because, again, he's been fantasizing about this chick the whole time. And you see, again, you can see the altar, his desk set up as an altar that they're getting ready to prepare for the thing for. And you see she's making out with him. Again, he's got the blood of his wife on his collar. And then he kind of wakes up from himself and says, don't you lose in the end? Right.
Yes. And he says,
oh, well, there we go.
He said, so it's interesting because he wants to bring on the kind of tribulation, right?
Right.
But he also is like, there's going to be a new world, right? We can make the rules, write our own. So he wants to write a new satanic Bible with a new world order.
That sounds familiar, like a new world order where everything's changed and there's new values and new morality and everything's inverted, and it's going to almost come to like a singularity where everything's going to invert.
Right. And he, of course, makes a blood sacrifice of himself, getting rid of this particular timeline. Then we see him doing the Al Pacino thing with the flames behind him, and he changes shape so his face looks like Pacino, but we see the real Satan face because we see Lucifer's wings, and he's kind of melting in flames. The Scarlet Woman deteriorates into a burned, charred body.
Right. And go ahead.
The argument that he makes, I mean, we could do a whole stream just on the argument that he makes, because look, but don't touch, but don't taste, but don't smell, or whatever he says.
Swallow.
Right? Yeah. And so his argument is the same as in book 9 of Paradise Lost. There's one particular section where he's talking to Eve, and he said, let me see if I can find it. Book 9. He says, he's basically telling her, he's telling her, he's talking about death and what death is, because death will be what will come from the fall, right? There will be death. But he says, whatever thing death be. So he's trying to minimize it. And then he says, if all things who enclose knowledge of good and evil in this tree, that whoso eats thereof forthwith attains wisdom without their leave, and wherein lies the offense that man should thus attain to know. What can your knowledge hurt him, or this tree impart against his will, if all be his? Or is it envy, and can envy dwell in heavenly breasts? These and many more causes import your need of this fair fruit. Goddess humane, reach them and freely taste. So he tells Eve, you can be your own goddess, right? You can be your own god, because in his philosophical equivocation, there's no harm in doing this. And that's what he's trying to tell Keanu Reeves is the case. Keanu Reeves, of course, then says, like, are we negotiating? Right. And he's like, always. Right. But Keanu Reeves takes the way out here instead of the Eve way.
Right.
I guess.
Right. No, and so what we're looking at here then is the way that Keanu Reeves ends this potential consort between him and his half sister, is he kills himself. So he shoots himself in the head. And what that does is, the way the movie ends then is this zooms, everything starts to fall apart. The Enterprise, the people turn into statues. Al Pacino turns into like a young version of looking like Keanu Reeves.
That's a crazy image right there. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And this is Al Pacino's old. You see, he's like now a mixture between him and Keanu Reeves. And you see his wings, and you see how upset he is. So you see him as Lucifer, and then he wakes up and he's back at the trial in Florida, with the pedophile that he lied for. And now he makes the right decision. He puts his wedding ring back on. Oh, I was trying to catch it.
He washes his face. He has kind of a baptismal thing where he washes his face, right? We zoom out of the illuminate, confirm one eye. And then he's back. I'm back in the bathroom. What happened? I'm in Gainesville.
Right. He's back in Gainesville, and now he makes the right decision to stand up and tell everybody that he can't do it.
Yeah.
And he goes and he gives Marianne a kiss because he sees she's alive and well again, and he's so happy. She's the way she used to be. And so he basically does something that's going to get him disbarred. He'll no longer be a lawyer, no longer be able to make the money and be great at what he thinks he is. But he's okay with it. And so we see that the ending gentleman of the media is like, oh, this is huge. Will you give us a quote? We got to make this a story. He's like, no. And he's like, but I can make sure that everybody in the country knows who you are. He's like, okay, well, talk to me tomorrow. And that's when we know.
Vanity, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
He's in an ill-fitting suit there.
And that's the end of the movie.
And then we see the flag.
Yeah, that is Devil's Advocate. And so yeah, a whirlwind of things.
Yes.
But man, we've hit every bullet point that I have written down as a note. Anything you want to add to that? I cannot believe it's 3.5 hours.
I think that again, the trope of the "it was all a dream" is cheap, but what they do here is slightly different because they're showing that the entire movie is a kind of a metaphor or like almost some sort of cinematic parable for the choices, right? For the choice of free will. In other words, like he sees himself in the mirror, he's looking at himself, and either the mirror fractures and he becomes someone else and he makes a series of continuous choices that are going to lead him to his eventual end, or he's going to make that choice right now and he can cut all that stuff off, right? And he can choose virtue. Right. Now, of course, he's human, so in the end, he's still going to be tempted, which is why Satan is still there and he's going to, vanity and all that. But I think it works. I think it works as a film. This is a great film. Really
yeah,
good.
It is a great film. And actually it has a lot of Christian messages. Now, nothing is explicitly like for Christ or anything, but the reality that they present as evil, as I opened up with, is totally consistent with an Orthodox Christian worldview. It's totally consistent with our theology, the ripple effect, the choices. And then I loved one of the things that I wanted to mention with the mirror is, as you said, the mirror is a point in which it does two things. For those who fall victim to the vanity, they obsess more and more looking into the mirror, like Narcissus.
Right.
They love their own image, but the mirror also can be a point in which we can see ourselves accurately. Where at the end, he's looking at the mirror in the bathroom and he finally sees himself accurately based on like what decision he needs to make to be the person he wants to be. And then he makes the right choice. And so the mirror is really interesting. There's a lot of magic rituals that involve mirrors. Again, the whole thing of magic mirrors, mirror on the wall. Psychedelics, people who dabble into drugs know that there's a weird thing that happens when you stare at mirrors. Yeah. That you can get loaded and go look at a mirror and all of a sudden your face morphs, you see demons, you see angels, you see good things, bad things, like who knows? And people warn, hey, if you're loaded and you're kind of iffy, like don't go stare at a mirror. And so mirrors, it's like a really sort of magical instrument. And that it's interesting how it's used symbolically in this film, where it's both something, again, when he goes to New York, mirrors are everywhere, but it's always in front of the people that are narcissistic and they are obsessed with themselves and they don't see who they really are. Yeah. And then at the end, the mirror is how he sees who he really is and what would lead to the choices.
Yeah, I think that it's great you bring up the mirror image in the narcissistic myth, but it's also interesting in Narcissus, like, he's looking down at himself, right? Because he's looking at his reflection in the water. So he's looking at a version of himself that is below himself. And the part of the narcissistic thing that's often forgotten is like the fact that echo plays a role. He goes out there because to find he hears voices, right? And he hears a beautiful voice, and he's going after which is also Skittles, because he hears the voice of himself, right? So he's attracted to his own voice, and then he looks down into the mirror and he sees himself, and he realizes that like he's completely into himself. Voices play a role in this because Marianne is the only one who doesn't look in the mirror. And she sees we see the audience, we see the distorted images of the demons in the mirror, and yet she still hears voices, right? And I think that this movie also like is great because it shows it's a great example of how mental illness and demonic energy like intertwine, right? Or can intertwine. I mean, they literally do so in this film, but her mental illness is clearly caused by a demonic thing. And the fact that it's so insidious because no one believes her. The symbolism and the imagery in this movie are really well done. This could have been a really bad movie. But because it's so campy, but like it's really well done. Even the little things, like when you first look up and you see Milton's apartment when they're looking up into this kind of false heaven of where he lives on top of the building, like you notice that even the clock is at like 4:40, so it's looking down. To the folks at home, like that when you see ads for clocks or watches, that it's always 10. It's always 10:10. The time is always set on those to 10:10 because it's like this. Yeah. Because advertising knows that people want to subconsciously see a smiley face. They want to see something positive. So the time is always set like this. But Milton's is set like so. It's down. It's looking down on you and it's frowning.
Oh,
so wow. There's a lot of that in the movie.
Wow. Lily, and so that means that the devil never stops tempting us, and we always need to be on guard. Correct. That's basically the gist of the movie here, is that the devil is always tempting us, but he absolutely necessitates our free will for us to be complicit in it. He can't force us to do something, but the more we become complicit, the deeper and deeper we move into something that's beyond our control, and it has a ripple effect on others that we cannot even begin to recognize nor see where that's going to lead. Ultimately, it leads to self-destruction, and obviously suicide is the way that both characters, Kevin and Marianne, in themselves, but really it was just a dream. But yeah, so complicity with evil always leads to self-destruction.
Tell that old devil, get on behind you. Or like Stewie Griffin does in Family Guy, what are you going to do when Christ comes back and puts a boot up your ass? Right? That devil, right? He's going to keep on trying. Right? But he's going to appeal to vanity. But yeah, this is a good movie. It's a really good movie. It's
Anyways,
really well done.
We got a few super chats, just a few real quick to run through. But brother, thank you so much. I cannot believe that took 3.5 hours to get through. But it is a long film. It's like it's a full 2.5 hour film.
It is. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for having me again. Really appreciate it. Love being here. This is my like 9th appearance on the show. You guys go back and watch all our film analysis we've done. And we started off doing Moby Dick. We did the book. We did
Moby Dick and Great Gatsby, I think, was our first conversation. Yeah. Those were 2 books I'd read. So I was like, well, we could dive in. That was when you first started your channel.
We've done
earlier.
We've done Beetlejuice, Hocus Pocus, Transcendence, Terminator 2, Christmas Carol, Fallen, Conspiracy Theory, this. There's one other one that we did.
Well, in the Christmas one, we did A Wonderful Life as well.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So go back and watch those. And also, please go to my channel. I'm like 15 away or something from 2,000 subs. So, maybe from 19. No, that's from 1900. Really? I'm 115 away. I can't do math. Help me get up to 2K, you guys. Help me get up to 2K. And go to my channel, subscribe. I'll be doing lots of literature coming up. I'm going to do, again, Michael Mann's. There's a Michael Mann movie of The Keep, but I'm doing the book, which is a good thriller. I do pretty kind of highbrow literature. I'm going to do Dickens and Great Expectations next. So I'll be doing a bunch of stuff. So help me get up to.
Yeah, guys, go subscribe. Give him some love. Get him over 2,000. He's almost there. He just needs, you said 12 more people.
Well, my math wasn't right. So I need like 15 to get to 1.9, and then I need another 100.
Okay, yeah. Well, you
So,
need a few. We're not going to get to
yeah.
2,000 tonight, but
Yeah.
we can get to 1.9. So do that, guys. And you just did Space Lizards 3 days ago, so that was after we did, because I think
Yes.
Dorian Gray was the last one. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did go back. You guys go back and watch my Dorian Gray. I did Dorian Gray, Surrealism, and Velvet Buzzsaw, the film analysis, all in one. I did just a fun analysis of Space Lizards movies. That was Enemy Mine, The Last Starfighter, Flight of the Navigator, a bunch of those in there. Right there, I did Midnight in Paris, the movie. Wes Anderson with Jerry and Exposing Powerful Lies. I did Paul Theroux's Mosquito Coast. I've done Shakespeare, romantic literature, Victorian literature. I even did one on Steven Seagal right there. One on the Norm Macdonald book. All areas and ranges of literature. So if you're into that, come on over. Appreciate you.
Do it. Do it. You do great work, man. Really appreciate everything that you do. Few super chats here. First one comes from Crumb Easterner Gordon. Throws in $5 and says, Adam Friedland mentioned Based on the show.
No way. There's no way. There's no way that he
That was the super chat.
That would
was
be
from Crumb Easterner Gordon.
That would be great, because then we could go up there and be on the Adam Friedland show with Nick Mullen, the funniest living comedian. That would be great, but there's no way.
I have no idea. They just super chatted. Adam Friedland mentioned Based on the show.
That'd be great.
Shout out to Michael and Maria, great Orthodox couple down in the South. Throws in a super chat and says, love the streams, great analysis, more DPH and BLA. Hope all have a blessed Holy Week and Pascha. Well, thank you so much, Michael and Maria. God bless you, and hope you have a wonderful Holy Week as well. Blessed Pascha to you. The Real Cooter Brown throws in a super chat and says, shout out to the homie BLA. It always makes for an enjoyable stream when y'all team up. Well, thank you so much, The Real Cooter Brown. And again, a major shout out goes to Aaron for sponsoring today's stream. We did not have this planned, but it kind of all came into the works this past week. So shout out to Aaron for deciding that, hey, I want you guys to check out that. He asked me if I had watched this movie. I was like, no, I haven't seen this movie. And he was wanting to talk about it. He's like, oh man, you should watch it. You should do a stream on it. You should get BLA to do a stream on it.
Yeah. This was a great choice. So thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Aaron. AC throws in a super chat. No comment for $5. Thank you so much, AC. Justin MF throws in a super chat. Says Baselet Analyzer Window Fund. Thank you for the great stream, guys. I'm glad no one had to get into the cellar.
Yes. Thank goodness. Yes.
Yeah,
my family down there in Mississippi, those tornadoes have been terrible down there. I don't have to deal with that up here in Virginia, but yeah, windows are all right after that hail.
Yeah. Amtown, our good Orthodox sister, throws in $10 and says, great stream, gentlemen. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Amtown 1. And Christian throws in a super chat and says, great stream, guys. Thanks. Well, we love you, Christian. We love you, Amtown 1. God bless you, sisters. Truly, truly appreciate it. Aaron said, I think it's I got more than my money's worth, is what he was saying. Shout out to MS. I'm not sure who that is. MS being Mississippi. Oh yeah, I get it. You're in Mississippi.
Yep. He's down there. Yeah, he's down there in South Mississippi near Gulfport. Yeah, my family's all over there. So shouts out to you, sir, down there. Hotty toddy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Shout out to you, brother. Thanks for sponsoring the stream. And then special thank you to AC, throwed in $5, said like a Toll House narrative. Yeah, you could say that. And then Tatiana, good sister, threw in $5 and said, God bless y'all. Great stream, guys. Have a blessed Holy Week. Well, thank you. You too, Tatiana. God bless you and your family. And Hirsch threw in $5. Thumbs up. Thank you, Hirsch. God bless you, brother. And that does it. So, man, I did not mean to keep you so long.
No, that was
We
good.
normally go long. I expect almost 2.5 hours whenever we link up. But over 3.5 hours, that's a new one. Dang.
I mean, almost a 4-hour analysis on the Devil's Advocate, y'all. I mean, you're not going to get any deeper than that, right?
No,
I
you're
mean,
not.
we did it.
Yeah, go find a deeper analysis on the internet. You won't. Yeah. So, brother, thank you so much. Again, anything I can do to support your work, help your channel out, let me know. Yeah, so everybody go give him a follow. You can you can click his name in the video title. His link is also active in the video description. Click that, go over, give him a sub, support our brother whenever he's live, give him some likes, share his content. Anything you'd like to leave with the people before hopping off here?
That's it. Thank you, people. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being here on the rewatch. Go back to that last one we did on conspiracy theory. Go to the rewatch on that. Come on over to my channel. Thanks everybody who supported, and thank you, sir, for having me here again. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, I didn't plan on doing one so quickly, but we'll have to definitely do another. Thank God you're off work. That played out well. You must be on spring break.
Yeah. This is my third week of spring break, so I got to go back Monday. So
dang.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, again, everybody smash that like. We'll see you all next time. I'll be back tomorrow with a stream. I did a whole lecture of Father Seraphim Rose that I'm trying to finish up editing. So that should be available tomorrow, and we will stream on that. But anyways, again, go support Bays. Smash that like. Until next time, as always, God bless.
Peace.